just when you thought it was dead.
The great Tony Todd, everybody. Tony, welcome to the show.
What's up, all the Rabbit and Red people?
Everybody's a suspect!
You're listening to Rabbit and Red.
Robert Shaw was a tough motherfucker.
Right.
They don't make that anymore. He wanted to punch Richard Dreyfuss on the set he couldn't stand because he's a pussy.
Fuck you. God damn you.
Welcome to Rabbit and Red Radio.
And I know that you like Jason Takes Manhattan, but my question to you is, why?
Okay, hey, Al. Okay, you're gonna tell me Halloween. You know what makes me mad about you, Mike? I'm gonna tell anyone that. It really makes me angry. The Halloween 6 effing 6 is your favorite movie? Or you're like Jason Part 8? But you think Jason Part 8 sucks?
Yeah.
Are you joking?
Jason belongs in hell. I'm gonna see he gets there.
We have such sights to show you.
A boy's best friend is his mother.
And welcome back to Rabbit and Red Radio. You're saying people weren't clicking on and listening to my show to hear me talk? They just wanted to hear them? What fucking assholes, man?
No, and I'm guilty of that too, because I'll click on it and I'll be like, oh, fucking Ted Rigby's on this show.
The blackest eyes.
Welcome to Rabbit and Red Radio.
The devil's eyes.
This is a huge honor for me.
Uh-oh, too much pressure. I'm going to disappoint you now.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Where's the lunatic?
The Fog is a horrible, horrible fucking remake. It's fucking utterly disastrous.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass.
Okay, so
I didn't like the first.
I've been blown up!
We'll show those shitters what we can do.
Celebrating 15 years of Rabbit and Red Radio. Now here's your hosts, the King of Porntown, and Michael J.
Producer Mike!
Wee woo! Welcome to another fine edition of Us Two Motherfuckers.
Yes, and I hit the wrong button because I added you like a few seconds before I wanted to. And I'm like sitting here and I like tapped the mouse pad with my finger and I was like, stupid crippled finger, I'm like, why did you do it? Like, I should have held back. But now our audio, people listening on the audio side will get some of that preamble because I was recording that too. Or I wasn't, I started the audio broadcast like a few minutes before I started the video. So they'll get the full context of kind of what was being said. But, I started the video portion with, me saying my thoughts of Ari Aster. But you got to remember, are these still my thoughts? Did my opinion change?
I'm excited, but I'm excited for this. So, folks, of course, welcome once again to another episode of Rabbit and Red Radio. I am Theo, that one weirdo, and with me, as always, is Producer Mike!
Oh, boy. That was, I got to tell you, that honestly was one of your best, if not your best. Thus far,
I pushed into that one. I made sure that I heaved into that one. That was important to me, so I made sure I dug in.
You certainly did, and
as usual, I worked for it because I'm waiting to hear your thoughts. But a little preamble. As always, we're going to talk about some goofy shit here and there. I'm probably going to go on at least a rant or two about God knows what. But I feel like I needed to give you a good intro, and we'll see, because I might have guilt because it was my suggestion for the movie we're going to cover just a bit later. And, folks, this is one of those movies you either think it is spectacular, or you want to find every copy of it that exists and burn it.
And here's the thing. I'm one of those two. So
This is a non-middle ground movie. It is called Midsummer. It is from Ari Aster, who is quite the unique filmmaker.
I'll say. I'll say.
He is a gentleman who, and I have to say that if you enjoy this movie, it is very much one or the other. And we will obviously get into that more, across the board once we get there. But truth be told, this is, and for those on right now, please feel free to chime in how you feel about this one, and we will get to that. We will get into that space. But this was my suggestion, where it was like, hey, you want to watch a movie? I got something for you. But I'm excited to get to that, because this is literally, there are some movies people suggest that are like, hey, you should check this out. And kind of pass it on. Like how people do with music. Oh, you never heard this, you never heard that. This, for me, is something that is so stunning as such a singular piece that I love the ideal of, like, hey, what do you think? And this is, I mean, honestly, as far as shows go, this is probably right up there with like the most anticipation for me to know what did producer Mike think of this one? Because this is not your run of the mill popcorn flick.
No, it is not, and I did not eat popcorn during it because I just didn't feel the need to have to. Although I did put it on during dinner, and I was a little hesitant to do that at first because I was like, I saw Hereditary, and I had popcorn during that in the theater, yes, but I don't know if I want to have dinner during this because I saw someone with a very distorted face, and I'm just like, I don't know if that's gonna work. So I started it with dinner, but I ate dinner very quickly because I was afraid, how my stomach might feel to things moving forward. But
especially, once again, this is not a movie that exists in the sphere of Hollyweird. This is, I mean, and we don't know the process as a whole, but movies like this, you can't just go and go, like when you pitch it, it's like, you can't sit there and go, well, this is a hit. And people are going to love this and stuff like that. Right. This is like, for me, this is like Mother and like Black Swan, where they very much exist unto themselves in a way where by the time you get to the end, hell, even halfway through, you go, how the fuck did this get made?
Yeah.
And it makes me think, because like, perfect example, and I think it had a summer release, but we are in the summer blockbuster Hollyweird season, and this one feels a little weird to me because we've got some milestones. So Jaws just made 50, and
surprising, yes.
I think it's insane to think about because, blockbusters, big movies, big ads, tie-ins, toys, cookies, whatever. And I say cookies because they have Superman cookies, and I actually bought the damn things, and I'm happy to say they didn't taste like shit. They were actually pretty good.
Wait. I didn't even know about these Superman cookies. What are they?
Okay.
I know none of these things.
So the old school Keebler cookies with the stripes?
Yes.
Okay. They made, basically what they did is they made that as a promotion for the Superman movie, which I could not be more ecstatic for. But then again, I'm a DC guy, so it's kind of par for the course. But They took the shortbread striped cookies and they made them berry flavor with like this white icing.
Oh, sweet mother.
Yeah, they look like something you would have at Christmas, but I have to say they're very enjoyable, and I love, for those who really relish the old blockbuster times, once Star Wars kind of came into play, it took a little time, but of course, before you knew it, like movies would market anything, meals at fast food places, or toys, or tie-ins to like, you name it. If the advertising chuckleheads could put their stamp on it, they would do so. And that was it. So for me, truth be told, I was always in that mindset where I was like, yeah, could I really get that? And just enjoy it, because now, and I'll be honest, I love looking for some of these just to see how ridiculous they are. Because in my mind, it's kind of like, okay, so some of these tie-ins just don't check out for me. Like, perfect example, a couple years ago, they made Lightyear. They made a live-action Buzz Lightyear movie. Those are the cookies, yep, on your screen. They're amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're about $3.
I need to try these.
Yeah, they're very good. Like they are very much like the shortbread cookies. It's got a berry flavor that's not too strong. Because with some of those tie-in stuff, I'm like, oh God, is this going to taste like shit or what? This I enjoyed very much. It made me very happy. But a few years ago, they made a Lightyear movie, and it was fine. Like, the cat was fucking funnier than Buzz Lightyear. Like, and it was a weird approach for a live action movie for a toy. And the mindset, or the way they kind of set it up was, oh yeah, so this movie came out, it was an action movie, and they made toys. So they were trying to put a spin on the blockbuster, but it didn't really work because the movie, number one, took itself too seriously.
Right.
Regardless of what you think of Tim Allen, they did not have Tim Allen as Buzz Lightyear, and that's iconic. Like, it works just too well. They had Chris Evans, who I don't hate, but it's not the same. And they tried to make this kind of almost like fun road movie, but it ended up dealing very seriously. And for something that was supposed to be a kid's movie, you don't need physics, which it has. Like, there's like aspects of like Interstellar, and it's like, why is that in my kids' movie? But one of their tie-ins was vegan hot dogs.
Oh wow.
It was weird. I went shopping and I can't remember if it was before seeing it or after, but it was one of those things where walked by one aisle, saw it, and I went, what 6 or 7-year-old is going, Mom, I need the Buzz Lightyear vegan hot dogs? It's strange. And it reminds you that they'll put their name on anything. One that I saw recently in February was for Captain America 4, which wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. But it was that kind of movie where you're like, wow, okay, like, it's a good time to kind of burn some time. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. There it is. It's fine.
I see, and I didn't watch Lightyear for the simple fact that it just seemed like a bastardization to me. So I kind of was like, nah, I don't think I'm gonna.
The logic behind what motivates the movie, as well as what makes the movie, like somebody in a Pixar boardroom, for them to kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, let's do that. I don't get it. Like, I mean, all the time movies get greenlit, and then we're like, what the hell is this? But I can honestly say, this particular situation, we did not get that. We really did not. This was just a case of, hey, let's make this thing. And if we slap Buzz Lightyear on it, then it should work. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't, because one, you have to make it accessible to what Toy Story was. That's what we all know. You try to take it out of that because they kind of reverse engineer the ideal of like, oh, so Toy Story takes place after Andy watching this movie. That's how he became a Buzz Lightyear fan. And it's like, yeah, but the Buzz Lightyear movie or that Buzz Lightyear is nothing like the toys. Like, it seems like it's from two different franchises when you watch it. It's not bad, but it's a skippable movie. You know, Pixar these days, Pixar, when they are kicking it, they are kicking it. And when they are just like, I think they just try to put too much emotionally on something that doesn't have to be so emotionally charged. In my mind, it's like, just make it whatever, guys. Like, it's okay. It doesn't have to all be, kind of connected to the ideal that, everybody should have fun and everybody loves this. And it's like, no, stop it. That doesn't have to be the case. It's not necessary. There are so many movies now, and depending on the company, but there are so many movies now that really want to make things so inclusive, and not just from a labeled standpoint of, pride or what have you, but it's nothing new that they want to make blockbusters inclusive, but it's like, it doesn't have to be all lovey-dovey. Like, it doesn't have to be, like in the case of like the first Toy Story, like that was such a good time. And part of what made that movie so great, not just because we had never seen it before, but the fact that we got to see for the first time something that looked like this, but ended up being like a buddy cop movie. But it played so well. The voices played well off of each other. And you got to see this story kind of work. It's magic. And that was part of the beauty of it. Now it's like, well, let's explore this issue and let's explore that issue. And I get that to tackle some of these things is identifiable for people to suck them in. But what happened to movies, and we don't see them as much as we used to, but what happened to movies like The Mummy from 99, where nobody is trying to make a statement. Nobody is trying to put their stamp on an ideal. I love thought out movies and stuff like that, but there used to be a time where that wasn't the norm. The ideal of a blockbuster was you were supposed to just go have a good time. You weren't supposed to think too much about it, especially in the case of Mummy, because that movie is so tongue-in-cheek to itself. It very much is there. It's there for entertainment. And that's why I think it is very much still a classic. Because, I mean, even if you don't really care for it and it's not your cup of tea, at no point where you're like, well, I got to go save the fucking whales now. Or I got to go save the fucking sand. Or, I got to speak out about... No. You just went and had a good fucking time. Like, why was that so bad? To just be like, where did we lose that? And I think it's two ways. I think, social media, internet. But I also think, once again, and we've said it before here, we'll say it again, Hollywood loves its trends. And if you can make one movie that sets a trend, you will have 25 shitty copycats in its place.
Oh, you will. That goes without saying these days, because that's all it seems like it is. It's horrible.
Yeah, I can't even, like, I almost feel weird joking about that because it's not funny. It's like, no, that's true. That happens. And one that happened I had just mentioned I didn't finish was the fact that we had, that Captain America movie, and there was ads, tie-ins for like American home insurance. And I'm like, protect your house like Captain America was protecting it. And it's like, stop it. Fucking stop it.
Now, see, I haven't watched a Marvel movie since Iron Man 2.
What?
Wait,
my God.
I'm sorry, scratch that. I watched the first Ant-Man because Paul Rudd, and I'll watch the second and third Ant-Man because of Paul Rudd.
Okay, that tracks. Oh my God. I mean, even that, because that was 2015. So you haven't seen a Marvel movie in like 10 years. That might not be a bad thing.
It's technically only been a year because I didn't see Ant-Man when it first came out. I just watched the first Ant-Man like a year ago. But before that, I hadn't seen a Marvel movie since Iron Man 2.
Wow. That's kind of blowing my mind.
Cause see, like, here's my thing. I never was really that huge on superhero movies yet. Like 89 Batman, I loved.
Yes.
The Sam Raimi Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, I loved. I still never saw Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, you're not missing out. It's not Spider-Man 3, and I'm not giving them a carte blanche for it, but Spider-Man 3, especially so many years down the road, presents itself like when you learn certain things after the fact, like Sam Raimi being on like podcasts and finally being in a position to talk about that experience. And he is completely honest about the fact that what happened with it, they kind of did to themselves, because you had the first one and it was great. Like, it was a good time. Like, they got so much right. And of course, like, anytime you do movies like that, it's always an experiment, especially considering so far back, Hollywood hadn't caught up to the ideal, and it was a Marvel thing, obviously, of like expanded universes. So until Marvel really showed what could be done and how much money could be made, like in the billions upon billions of dollars, you did not get Hollywood behind that ideal. That's why you had sequels, but it was all kind of in that space. And even the sequels were sporadic, which was good because we got to anticipate things. Not like now where it's like, Marvel's like, even now, hey, there's a new series. Why? And it's not meant to knock anything they do, but it is still a case of like, why? Why do we need so much of this?
Right.
It's a lot to take in. There used to be a really important aspect of movies based against not seeing them called anticipation. It was nice to look forward to something and know about it, but not be bombarded. And it kind of goes back to the whole ad thing. It was nice to just go, oh, this is coming out. That's cool. Now, thanks to cell phones, social media, we see, I think after a while, it's like, we know it's coming out. No, you need to check this. I said we know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Really, it's like, did we not cover that? I know, like, we know. We fucking know. Like, for real. And for my money, that's where I think a lot of this stuff with the streaming services where it's gone kind of sideways, because they push out so much so quickly. Perfect example, Squid Game, which I adore that first season, because you really got to see something you weren't expecting, and it was done in such a way, a narrative, where, because everyone thinks, I mean, you see the pink Rangers or whatever, and the buttons, faces like PlayStation, but people, until you watch it, you really realize that the game where all that stuff happens isn't just the game. There's other aspects to it, like on the outside world before they go to the island. So it's an amazing show. It is a show that people did not expect, and then they watched it and went, "Oh my God, this is great." So we had a season 2 that was on my birthday, and the third season, and they're claiming it's the final season, is going to be out tomorrow. Now, I'm ecstatic for it. But like most shows that I love, and they push so many episodes and seasons so quickly, not everybody can keep up. Like What We Do in the Shadows. I adore that show. I got to meet Harvey, who plays Guillermo on the series, and he's wonderful. I have not seen the 6th season yet, because there's so many other things that get in the way as far as series. So the bombardment is from a blame standpoint is on all the studios and all the people involved, because it is very much a case of like, watch this, watch that. I think that kind of goes to why we don't get 15-year seasons anymore, because they have to bring out the next thing. And I think another important side is, how can you keep up? Like, I mean, I grew up on that type of television where you had 22 to 25 episodes in a season, and then you had like 10 seasons, and it's like, yeah, of course, some episodes are better than others. But when you look back, like even Friends, it's like, why the fuck did we need almost 300 episodes of Friends? Like, what the fuck was that about? And to be fair, I still enjoy it. I don't think it's that grand. And not just because time has passed, because now it's like, oh, well, 6 white people living in a fucking apartment together, people would lose their fucking minds. And it's like, well, people are going to lose their minds no matter what. They just have to find out the thing they're going to get, selectively upset about. But there are funnier shows of that time with less episodes, because you focused on what was there. You didn't necessarily have like, okay, well, now we got to look to this season and that season. And like I said, I enjoy Friends, but there's a series called Coupling, and it's BBC, British television. Oh, it is 20 times better. And it is very much in the blueprint of Friends. Like, you watch it and you cannot deny for a second that one to the other is connected. They are very much of the same. And it's great because it took the form of Friends and went in the other direction. There's nothing wrong, and there's been several TV shows. And remember, once Friends hit big, do you know how many fucking pilots we had? Do you know how many series that started and ended up fucking sucking ass and then fell short because they were all so every network, including NBC themselves, was busy trying to find the next Friends.
Right. Yeah, that was the.
They
even had that spinoff with
yeah,
Joey. Wasn't it Joey or whatever that they did the spinoff with?
It was, yeah. And that show was shit.
Yeah, no, that that was like, that's not gonna work. Didn't work.
Well, and it's all It's all, product of the time. So now, like, if you went back, like, let's say they wanted to reboot Friends. God knows I hope that never fucking happens.
Yeah,
but it is very much a case of like, you have to sit there and go, what would that look like? Like the last series I can think of that really ran that long and pretty solid is like Supernatural. And that got done about 5 years ago. And that was a case of here is the end of this. But that started in 05. Network TV still worked like how network TV did. It was not a case of like now where it's like, oh, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. Like, excuse me, where you find yourself in that position where you're like, oh, so now we have to figure this out. And now we got to figure that out. And I agree with you, Cody. Streaming services, well, and the thing is too, is that there's no balance in between the 2 points. That's why it's so weird how some of these studios still turn anything that remotely looks like a profit, especially when so many of them are honest about how these streaming services have put them in a hole as far as their numbers go. Because okay, here's a streaming app. We'll say Paramount. They're in the toilet, so fuck them. They got movies, they got TV series, and they're making more TV series and stuff. Now, number one, it's subscription-based. They don't intend to give it out for free, but not everybody is going to pay. And thanks to the internet, you can find ways of getting this stuff and not having to pay.
You can. Yes.
I'm not advocating that. That is a buyer beware, and that is individual acts unto themselves. I'm not saying to go do it, but if you're gonna do it, you don't need my approval. Doesn't matter. You're gonna fucking do it no matter what. And I'm no saint. Let's put it that way. Not anything I've done recently, but like I said, I'm no saint. But now they bring out new content, and now we live in an age where digital cameras exist. Digital color timing exists. It doesn't take long if you greenlight something to get it completed, to get it to its endpoint. So not only do they flood the market, but they flood their own app. And it's like, well, we want to give as much content as possible. But isn't that kind of part of the problem? Content. You want to take a name and you want to slap something on it. You don't necessarily want to watch something bloom and have a trajectory and get better. That's why shows like Severance, the fact that they exist is insanely impressive to me. Because number one, it's extremely expensive. Number two, it is probably some of the best TV I've ever seen. And I love that we're coming into an age where we have what I like to call grounded sci-fi, where you can take a concept, and because we have technology that does so much, you can take a concept and put a realistic turn on it, and it works. I think that's impressive. But once again, you got to pay and subscriptions and stuff like that, and not everybody does. Not everybody wants to. However, some of these work only because it's the corporation, not the TV station. In the case of Paramount, obviously they're owned by somebody else, but they just have that. Apple and Amazon, exactly. Apple has literally come out and said that their streaming service that has had Ted Lasso, Severance, Silo, some amazing TV that has come up in the last few years. And I hate giving Apple any fucking props. They're so fun. I can't even go on with the fucking reasons why I don't want to give them props. But having said that, you give love where love is due.
It's good though.
Huh?
Shrinking is good. I don't know if you've ever seen
Shrinking
that.
is amazing, and
I
I
really like.
love the fact that I love that scene where he decides to he decides to be a little more honest with his patients, and Harrison Ford has that moment. He's like, "Can I just look at you for 10 seconds?" And it's silence, and he looks at him. And for the first time, like, after the wife died, it was the first time where he was like, "Okay, I don't like," and from the jump, he's like, "I don't like this. I don't think I think what he's pushing has merit, but it's also dangerous, especially with shrinks, because you never know how that's going to turn." But he looked at him and he went, "Okay." And it was literally a product of him seeing that all come to play. It was literally his way of just watching that guy come back. And it's very poignant. It's hilarious. Harrison Ford, I mean, I knew the man was funny for years, but for him to play a real, like, straight, but it's definitely a comedy and you know it. Like, one of the best parts was like when he's sitting there reading the paper and having his coffee, and they're at the practice and he's kind of starting his day, and he's like something to the effect of, "Hey, good morning." And they're all talking back and forth. He goes, "You know what I miss about mornings? Where it was all quiet before people got started and they would just shut the fuck up."
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, that's
and and I love his story is particularly sad and sweet because he has this relationship with his daughter, but it's weird. And he has to kind of look to her for like his needs as far as like, if something happens or, when he's in a medical crisis or dies, like who's going to handle all his stuff. And she loves him and he loves her, but there's so much divide there. And even when he tries to play the dad, he's very much like, it feels weird. Like I feel that. I mean, I have a great relationship with my children now. I could not be happier. I love them both dearly. I have since the day they popped onto this earth. But when kids get older, obviously they're not kids anymore. But no matter the age, they will be your kids. You can't help but to feel that. Like even when they come over, like they'll just come over to hang out. My daughter's going to come Saturday. My son's probably going to come Sunday. But we have a new kitten, and she's very dinky. Her name is Sarah. I gave her an alternate name. I call her AA for Ankle Assassin because she's so small. It's like, oh my God. And she is adorable, but that is a little little shit of a kitten. I ain't going to fucking lie. But she is great. And since we lost Boom in November, it's been good for Steve. He's not lonely anymore when we're all having our days, working, what have you. So they're coming over to visit. I go through in my mind over and over, hey, and make sure we get enough drinks. Make sure this, make sure that. And when they become grown-ups on me and go, hey, can we bring a side? My daughter, she's going to make a side. And, we suggest pasta salad or whatever. And then she's going to bring dessert. And it's like being the provider parent, part of the parents, if you will. I always feel that, I got to make sure there's enough drinks. I got to have that. You know what I mean? Like everybody, you know what I mean? It's like the person who takes the mom role at like a fast food place where they're doing a birthday party or like a bunch of get together. Okay, everybody got napkins? Okay, do you have enough sauce? You didn't get enough tartar sauce. We talked before. You never fucking pick up enough tartar sauce, but I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to get more tartar sauce. It's very much that case with the relationship of those two characters. It's great. The woman who plays her daughter, I think it's Lily Rabe. I hope I got her last name right. But she was on a bunch of Ryan Murphy stuff, and she was on the she was on American Horror Story. And the cast is stacked, like even with the people they have come in as cameos. And I don't know if you heard, but season 3 is going to have Michael J. Fox.
I did hear that. I am very excited for that because I thought he was done with acting. So I'm kind of glad that
Well,
coming back.
he will always be connected to Bill Lawrence, because Bill Lawrence, before doing Scrubs, created Spin City, and he created that with Michael J. Fox. And that was right after he was a writer for, oddly enough, we mentioned Friends. But he did, when Michael J. Fox's condition really started ramping up, he still did 2 seasons or 2 episodes of Scrubs. So to see him still try to be a part of something is wonderful. It's a testament to the man. He'll always be Marty. He'll always be the guy in the lifeguard or Coast Guard vest.
Yeah, I think they should do a 4th one and have him come back for that, and just I don't know. I really think they should.
I don't need, but that's the thing. Like, it's okay to stop. It's okay to say when. It's not a bad thing to go. I mean, when you stop and think about it, like when, like a perfect example. Okay, RoboCop 2 and 3. I enjoy 2. 3 is rough because 3 was kind of like, let's just get this out of the way. But did we need those movies? The first one ends perfectly. The case that gets made for the characters and all that stuff is very much in line, on point with getting it done right the first time. And in doing so, yes, it made money to where the suits were like, we need another one. But we don't always want another one. And it's tricky because if you get it right, you get it right. Like T1 and T2. T2 should not have been as good as it is.
Right.
It upped the stakes and it upped the ante just fine. But it's interesting to watch it now go into this huge redundancy because everybody wants to make the next hit Terminator and everybody wants to keep bringing this stuff back. But now it plays like Jurassic Park, where it's like, okay, now we have to find another reason for time travel with Terminator. Let's find another fucking reason to get with the fucking dinosaurs. Because even if the dinosaurs are everywhere, we still have to go get them somewhere with the dinosaurs. even though, and let's be honest, we knew once Jurassic World came about and started bringing all this stuff back after 15 years of no Jurassic Park movies, it was never a fucking question that sooner or later they were going to get off the fucking island. Which, for me, like, killed it. Because it was too obvious. Like, it really was one of those things that's like, you don't have to go for the obvious play. Because for me, believe it or not, I love the turn. Because let's be honest. 1, 2, and 3, the first 2 from Spielberg and then from Joe Johnston. They were the second and third were kind of plugging holes. Oh, look, there's another island. Nobody said anything about another island. Oh, look. Oh, what the fuck? Oh, look. And now we've got a Calypso kleptomaniac stick it up your butt thesaurus, like whatever the fuck they made. And it has no rhyme and reason because, once again, let's find another reason to get them on the island. When the first Jurassic World hit in 2015, I love the way it played, and I wish the trilogy had released them at the very end of the trilogy. I wanted to see things start to go haywire, and it didn't have to be, oh no, it's all amok. Like, yeah, this worked up until it didn't because it was too obvious a play. What if you took the Jurassic World trilogy and set it all on the park, and then the third act, being the third movie, is when it all goes shits up, and you spend 2.5 hours watching the park fall down, watching this war start with all these people. Because once again, We know you're going to get them off the fucking island. That's going to be the point. You're going to do it, and yet you're going to pull a punch. Because the last Jurassic World, it's like, they're free. Oh, no, we're fucked. And then the end, which they didn't even work for that ending, they go, well, dinosaurs and people are just going to have to learn to be friends. It's like, no. Fuck you and no. Because but the whole point was, from an evolutionary standpoint, they were out of sync. Like, it was literally something that existed 60, 70 million years ago, whatever the case may be.
Right.
What makes you think that in our world, a Tyrannosaurus Rex is going to be like, you know what, dog? I'll meet you at Chipotle. It's like, no, the whole point is they're not supposed to cohabitate. And you cannot, and from a standpoint of the studio, they could not help themselves to keep going back. I love the fact that we finally got the park, because it played like a what if, but it was also like, well, yeah, that made sense. That was always the point. That's why if you took that trilogy and made it 3 movies, that made sense. Because remember, the island is so big to where, yeah, you can do different things in different places, and you can watch the trajectory of this grand dream fall apart yet again. It doesn't have to be a case of, oh, well, we got to get research, or we got to save them, or I left my lucky lighter on the fucking dinosaur island, so let's go fucking get it, because I've been unlucky since I lost my fucking lighter. Like, no, stop it. And I want to see this new one. But then again, as soon as I saw the trailers for it, I was like, wait a minute. Scarlett Johansson sweaty on a beach in Thailand? Who is reading my fan fiction again? I feel violated.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I ever told you, but I got to meet her in 2008.
Oh, you did?
Yes. So she did this in Kuwait, and her way of supporting the troops. So Miss Scarjo, if you happen to listen to this, I thank you, and many veterans and service members, thank you. But she did a meet and greet. What she basically did was she came down. They blocked off, I think it was like the kind of, we would have like common areas. But they basically, she took pictures, signed autographs. And of course, there was a lot of dudes there. Yeah. And some females. And it was still don't ask, don't tell. And I'm not trying to be this person, but you could tell who was there for her. And it was like, yeah, my boyfriend's a big fan of yours. Can you sign this? It's like, look, nice try. Keep it under the radar. Your secret's safe with me. Thank you for serving with all of us. I was always a firm believer, and I will be from the get-go. You don't have to hide, because if you're going to go sign up where most people don't, you will always have my respect. I don't care if you're trans, gay, lesbian, if you fuck inflatable dragons in your fucking spare time. I don't give a shit. If you go put on armor and put a Velcro flag on your shoulder and serve this country where most people do not, or in most cases won't, because they're fucking pussies, I salute you. And as far as all the other labels and all that bullshit now, I'm like, I don't care. Because at no point, like if I'm shot, at no point am I going to sit there and go, wait, before you save me, do you eat pussy or do you suck dick? That conversation will never fucking take place, ever. You know why? Because they're there with me and they're yanking my ass out of harm's way. I'm not looking for fucking ID here, people. I don't need all that happy horse shit. And you know what? If the guy is gay and he gets me out of there in harm's way and doesn't get shot, or even if he does but survives, he does deserve to go home and have his fucking dick sucked by his husband, God damn it. Yeah, all this label shit. Oh no, we only need straight men in the fucking military, blah, blah, blah. Really? Because the last time I checked, all these fucking cocksucker, fuckhead pieces of shit cunt bags, guess what? They're not out there. They want to control this. They want to slap labels on this. And all these fucking pieces of shit are full of fucking shit like my asshole after I've had 7-quarter fucking pounders. They are fucking full of it, and it is fucking retarded to the umpteenth degree, because it's like, until you go out there, who the fuck are you to say who goes and who doesn't? Because we don't have a draft. The people who show up, such as myself, we join the military, and people are like, well, like all that trope shit in war movies. I didn't sign up for this. What the fuck do you think the military does? Well, I was just here to get my college degree. No. That's not how that works.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bottom line. That's not how that works. It never fucking has. It's the military. Even if you are part of a career field in the military where you never see a shot fired, and you could be in 20 years because it does happen, you cannot sit there and tell me that, at year 19 and 2 months, it's like, wait, I have 10 months to go. Can we not have people shoot at me? No, motherfuckers. No. That's not how it works. And that's not how it's ever worked. And just the plain fucking idea that people would, just think that is insane to me. It really fucking is. But yeah, if you go out there, all that checkbox shit, I don't care. You're out there with me. It's not just about you. It's about the person next to you. And once again, there's no draft. So anybody who's going to be out there, God love them for it. But she was out there and she signed, and she of course had a ton of wedding proposals and stuff like that. But I met her and she was really sweet, and she was just getting, it wasn't there yet. It was probably in the works, but she wasn't even Black Widow yet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was still, we knew who she was. She had already done some great things, but it was still very early on in her career before she became who she became, Black Widow and other movies, and, married to Colin Jost from SNL and making $15 million a picture. It was right before she got to that. It was right before that happened. But she was very sweet. She was giving out hugs. And fortunately, nobody was gross or weird. And even what she was wearing, she knew what she was there for. I'm not trying to be gross or creepy, but it's yeah, you're not a famous ice skater and we're in Kuwait. That's not, we know you're here to be hot and make guys happy, if you will. Mm-hmm. But yeah, even with this Jurassic Park coming up, I'm excited, but once again, we're back to, and they know dinosaurs exist, but now we're back to the whole, oh boy, now we have to get them on another island and let's do, and it's because this one, apparently we find out there was a third island. No, another island.
Well, it is the start of the third trilogy, so
but can we stop? Can we stop just making up? Once again, it goes back to the lighter. I left my lighter. It's lucky. We have to go back, and it's no. Even Lost, it was no, you don't have to go back, Jack. You can cry as the main protagonist anywhere. That's the goddamn point.
Right.
Cody chimed in. ScarJo was Sydney Sweeney version 1.0. Sir, you are not wrong, because being next to ScarJo, like, I was like, wow. There are people this hot that exist, and they're people. But she was very sweet. I love what she did for the troops, and she was there. She was there the entire day, and there was a line out of that common room, that building, if you will, the entire time. Like, if you hopped in that line at any point, you were going to be outside for at least a couple hours if you wanted to meet her. But she was very sweet. And the entire time, she's just, it's not, oh, I got to take a break or whatever. She's like, nope, I'm here to do something for the troops, because whether or not they agree with this war or what they're doing, like, they're here. It's even with the way those scenarios went down, it was nice to be thought of as being appreciated. Like, Bruce Campbell even did a USO tour. I missed that one, goddammit. I was so pissed when I found out. I think he went to Iraq. Like, he went across the berm. A lot of them go to Arif Jan, which is like Kuwait or parts of Kuwait or Qatar, because they're safe zones, but there's also staging areas. So you're going to have a lot of troops. So it's great that they do what they do, and grateful for it. But I think Bruce went to an actual base that was ongoing in Iraq, if I remember correctly, because he talked about it on a podcast. So for me, yeah, I found that out. I'm like, and keep in mind, I got to meet Robin Williams. I got to briefly meet Lewis Black. I saw Kid Rock. Toby Keith did one at one point. He did a show. All kinds of visitors supporting the troops. It was really great. I watched the Pussycat Dolls. So many great entertainers and people who took the time, a little or a lot, to be able to come out and do that kind of stuff. And as many of them as I was fortunate enough to meet or talk to, even briefly, and I'm so grateful for them to just do those acts, to kind of just a little hey, you're not forgotten. Because it feels like that sometimes, being out there. But I could not have been more upset when I was like, what do you mean Bruce Campbell was here and I missed him? What the fuck? And I was back from a deployment when that happened. I was home. I was here in Utah. And that was probably one of the few times I went, shit, I'd rather be back in Iraq.
That would have been... So you've never met Bruce Campbell at this point?
I did meet Bruce. No, I met Bruce a couple years ago. And what it was, and this was completely by accident. So I was still working from home. And what had happened was I picked up on this by accident from another friend who had shared it on her feed, on one of her socials. And it was Bruce Campbell was touring for the Evil Dead Festival, or Evil Dead Tour. So he was touring the movies. So what he was doing is, on the first night, or at least here in Park City, first night, he did a QA, showed the first movie. Well, he introduced the first movie, watched the first movie, and did a QA. And there was a woman there with a bunch of her friends who had never seen the first Evil Dead. Oh my God. The whole crowd was like, what? And even Bruce was like, you've never seen this movie? And she's like, no. And he goes, oh boy. He goes, I'm going to talk to you first after this. He was like, lady, you are in for a ride. You don't even fucking know. Second night started in the afternoon, because the second night they did two movies. They did My Name is Bruce, and then they did Evil Dead 2. And then the last night, there was a meet and greet with him. So that's where I got to meet him. And he was awesome. And it was still in the midst of COVID. So he wasn't, because he's usually very outgoing, and people complained after the fact, like, oh, he wasn't outgoing. And it's like, my man's in his 60s. He got to worry about his health like anybody else. Like, it's an interesting time. I'm like, the fact that he came out here at all, like, I applaud that. So the last night was meet and greet. And then Army of Darkness, and then a QA afterwards. And here's the best part. Are you ready? So he went to multiple cities for 2-3 nights a pop. Portland, Seattle, all these great little smaller venues. But, it was him touring the movies, basically.
Right.
We were at the tail end of the tour. So first night was October 29th. Second night was October 30th. And the last night of the whole tour and the day I met Bruce Campbell was October 31st. I got to meet Bruce Campbell on Halloween that year.
Now that would be a pretty sweet Halloween. I would assume.
It was great. You could tell, because with the touring, and I'm not trying to knock his age, but it takes a lot out. You got to fly, you got to drive. Every time you're up there, you got to put on a show. Like, with it being Bruce Campbell, there was massive expectation. And especially when you hear him on like some podcast where he's just a riot. He's very funny and entertaining. And, he didn't like shake hands or hug a lot. He did like fist bumps, and that was cool. But I said, I just want you to know, I said, I know you hear this from everybody. I said, you're amazing. You're one of my heroes. And I said, I thank you. And I said it like this too. I said, I thank you for doing USO back in the day. I said, sorry, I missed that one. And he goes, military? I said, retired. I said, happily retired. And he goes, well, thank you for so much. And he goes, I hope retirement is great. I'm like, retirement is pretty sweet at the moment because I get to meet you. So he gave me a fist bump and then did our picture. And his photo op was only $60. Like
Well,
it wasn't a lot. And of course, as usual, he was dressed to the nines because he's Bruce fucking Campbell. He looks great. But it was also a case of like, and because people just, you pay your money. So the ideal is that, oh, well, he has to do this and he has to do that. And I'm the opposite where I'm like, he doesn't have to do anything. Like the fact during this ongoing, maybe towards the tail end of a global health crisis, if you will. And he left home, the sanctity of his home in rural Oregon where he resides. He did this tour, got to engage with fans all across the nation, and he ended up in Park City last of all. And I was just, like me personally, I was just like, it don't get no better. So at the time, told my girlfriend, I was like, because I actually tried to invite her to the last night to see Army of Darkness. And it was at the Egyptian in Park City, which is an older theater. And it's got a pretty good turnout as far as like how many seats. But it is not like, it's not like a gussied up venue. It's not like a dance hall or anything. It is very much a case of like, because the seats don't go back and all the seats have that metal backing like the old ones do. Not like now where it's like just a hunk of plastic that bends. It was like all these metal, like you try to go back and you just hear, like it's all this gear, and it's pretty enjoyable in its own right, if you will. Cody, heard Bruce was semi-retiring from acting. I heard that too. I would love for him to do a full podcast on his own because he's a riot. And one thing I enjoy about a lot of his stories is that he has this wonderful appreciation or obsession, whichever you want to call it, for old Hollywood. When you had types like James Garner and you had Jimmy Stewart, these guys who fought in wars, and then, they were actors before they joined up, and then vice versa. Like, you think about now what we consider a celebrity, and even if you're fighting on the side of right, okay, let's put it this way. Do you really think The Rock would go out? Like, I mean, he loves playing to the military, and I think it was the Army that paid him $11 million to do recruiting for them, and he didn't do most of it, and now the Army is looking to get the money back because their recruiting numbers didn't improve, and whatever he was supposed to do for them did not happen.
So wow.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they can, recoup some of that, because holy shit, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, but once again, like, even with like having the ones that did USO, like that's a leap in a good way. But like, if we were a part of war like that now, might be sooner than you think at this point. But do you think the Game of Thrones cast would end up in the middle of Iraq to go shake hands? No. Like, nobody's going to do that anymore. Like, it's such a different time. And even if it was under the right cause or the guise of the right cause, they're not going to do it. That time has passed, But yeah, I got to meet Bruce Campbell on Halloween. Like, I mean, I have some proud moments. They're not all the best, but I have certain moments where I'm like, okay, like, that worked out. Yay me, and stuff like that. That is one of them. If Bruce was to retire, because Bruce just had a birthday, he just turned 67.
Yeah.
He is not a spring chicken. No offense, but sooner or later you have to slow up. And Bruce has made a name for himself. It's not like it's such a wash that he would not do this stuff anymore. Like, for me personally, I can't help but to be like, yeah, I agree. Like, it's great that he's there and being a part of all this. Like, I think that's wonderful. But I also know deep down it's tricky, because I think people like him love what he gets to do and be outgoing. But once again, you got to know when to say when. Him doing like a podcast would be wonderful. And even if he had guests or didn't have guests, I don't think it would matter. Like, I think he would still be very entertaining. He seems like somebody who knows how to like entertain himself and make himself laugh, especially at like things that he does. But once again, it's like, yeah, we don't like, how many entertainers now do you think is going to rush off? Let's put it this way. You think Kendrick Lamar is going to rush off to the middle of Baghdad to have a free concert? And even if it's something you don't like WWE, like, they know a lot of their demographic is part of the military folk. Why? Because a lot of us are fucking meatheads, and that's the truth. But the fact that they go out there and do that stuff says something. How many acts and bands do you think will do that stuff now? I'm pretty sure it's close to zero, especially the ones that tend to really not dig into the military, but they know what side their bread is buttered on. They know who their fan base and their demographic is. It's no secret, They know who puts money in their pocket. So why not pander to who loves them most, if you will?
Right.
Yeah, it's not a reach, not at all. So
I still want a 70-year-old Ash in Evil Dead 4 or something. That's what I want.
I would like to see, and this is something that was actually kind of mentioned on another podcast, but I would like to see him kind of do like an oral history of how, because with Ash versus Evil Dead, the Star Show, like you get to see firsthand like all this stuff happen, where it's like, yeah, the Deadites are finally here. Like sooner or later, it was like they decided, okay, we're gonna fuck you guys up. You guys ready? And then it's like, okay, here they are. They made it. What do we do? And I gotta say, like for me, I'm like, yeah, check that out. Like let's see how well that works. And I could see him doing like he was using, like this is just my mind, like using an old tape recorder and like doing an oral history of like how how the world reached that point to where you can't help but to go, whoa, what the fuck? How did this happen? How did we get to this point? Like, is this really a thing? Like, holy shit. And it's like, I'm with Mike on this. Bring on Bruce Campbell and Title of Dissonance. That's a movie I really wanted to love. And lo and behold, that wasn't going to happen. I don't think it's a horrible movie, but that is another classic case of, did I really need this? And of course, the short answer is no, I didn't.
I'm finally going to watch it because I've decided to finally start watching movies again because I've found joy in movies again, and I don't know, I don't think I mentioned it, but like over the last I guess almost 2 weeks, I've watched probably more than 12 movies already.
That's
So
awesome.
It's insane that I'm just like doing this. I'm going through because I only saw the first 2 Mission Impossibles. So I actually watched the first 2 last Saturday back to back. So I think this weekend I'll probably try to go through the rest of them. I think that's my plan.
I love the ideal of, because, when you love movies and you feel like it's not clicking, but then they come back and you have that feeling, you feel re-energized again. You're there again, you're present, it's a nice feeling. Isn't that great to kind of like rediscover something you love and then just be kind of in the midst of it where you're like, oh yeah, I love this, but I didn't, you know what I mean? It something got lost along the way. And I have had a bit of a crisis of faith with that. And what it comes from, and I can tell you firsthand, what it comes from for me is the fact that movies don't get made the way they used to. I love the thought of introducing people to movies, but because the way things are so generationally, they don't see, like, I like from a younger standpoint, at least this generation, you're like, would you even get The Godfather? And I think a lot of them would be like, well, this is just fucking boring, and it's like, and a lot of it is because it's a different time.
Me, definitely.
Me, I can't even bend my head around the ideal of like not enjoying The Godfather, where of course a lot of people are like, oh yeah, who's gonna watch that shit? And it's like, it's the fucking Godfather. Like, have you lost your goddamn mind? And of course, in a lot of cases, they certainly have.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And see, that's the thing. And I might have said this before. I don't know if I said it to you before on air or like, talking off air. But like I appreciate movies like Die Hard and The Godfather and stuff that I saw when I was younger. Like now when I watch them, they hit different. And I think I
Yes.
appreciate them more now than I did then even. You know what I mean?
Probably because you, like me, have that understanding that movies like that are not going to exist
Mhm.
the way they used to.
No, like I don't think
just
you could do that these days.
yeah,
Like,
it's just not there.
Right. It's not.
It's
And
such
that's,
it's yeah, it's so different and it doesn't connect the same. And there are some, like probably one of my more recent, I guess you could say, parental moments, even though my son obviously already in his 20s, he very much had this moment of like, wow. Because here's a perfect example, starting with Godfather 3. That way their expectations are low.
Oh yeah.
I don't.
That's the
This is
best
for
way to
Cody.
do it.
I will say, well, but here's the thing. I don't think 3 is bad, but I feel like 3 was the movie that everybody who was involved made because they could make it. And I don't think it was out and out bad, but I also know that it was something that was beyond its sphere because 1, amazing. 2 should not have been that good. But I also think, and not necessarily generationally, but there was like a 16-year gap between 2 and 3. And there is a generational disconnect. And, it was 1990, the last one came out. And by then, everybody was a star and could get it made. And a lot of them had their hands out for paychecks. Because we all know, when I found out, they wanted to make a Godfather 3. I said, God damn it. I intend to have children into my 80s. Let's get the non-existent child a college fund. What college he gonna go to? I don't know. I'll be dead by then. And when you look back, like if you look at some of like the behind the scenes stuff before they even got in front of the cameras, I feel like Paramount could have pulled the plug and people would have been like, okay. Like it was great seeing where Michael was, but nobody needed a 3. It was very much a case of like, okay, you fucking nailed it. Go, hooah! That's right, Cody. Let me tell you something. I love a good hooah. When I made that kid that I should not have been allowed to make, when I nutted in that hot lady, I said hooah! And then I was like, hey, that can't be mine. My nuts look like the California raisin claymation figures from the 1980s. If my gut wasn't so big, I would know for sure. That's how my nuts look. But hooah! That was the kid's first word. I said, okay, that's with me. And of course, Al and his new baby get along well because they both speak gibberish and wear diapers. So there you go.
Yes, they do.
Hey, repeat after me. Kakifami hoo! Akikikara! Hooah! All right. Ferocious, aren't I? Yeah. And here's something about Al, and I don't know if I've told you this. Obviously, the man's always been entertaining, even when he was subdued when he was younger. Because, like Godfather 1 and 2. Fredo, you're my brother, and I love you. but don't you ever turn your back on the family. Ever. Now, that was the 70s, and by the 90s, we were like, she's got a great ass, and you got your head all the way up. Ferocious, aren't I? But one of my favorite...
You can cut pretty good back and forth between old and young Alan.
It's a little creepy. So the actor Titus Wolliver, I hope I have his name right, but he was on Bosch on Amazon, and Bosch is great. He's fantastic in it. And it deserved the 8 seasons it got, because that guy was no joke. He was on Rick Eisen's show and he can do all 3 stages of Al.
Oh, shit.
Impressions. And of course, the best one is let me tell you how Godfather 4 should go. I can't be in it because I died. But I could be a ghost. I'd be like, boo, Corleone. I'd be like, boo, Corleone, bitch. You know, but if you get the chance to look it up, like he does all 3 great stages of Al. But believe it or not, one of my favorite, like this is a top 3 performance. And part of it is because I grew up with the main character of this movie. And it was a trip to see it brought to the movies. And that rendition makes so much sense, especially in 1990. I love him in Dick Tracy.
Oh yeah,
he is fantastic, and the man, believe it or not, actually garnered a Best Supporting Actor nomination for that movie. He didn't win, which I think was a crime, but he was phenomenal, and he was chewing up the scenery and was so great, especially about that movie because it was Warren Beatty doing Dick Tracy, which I think is overdue. The problem is Warren Beatty still owns the rights.
Oh,
he still has the rights. That's why we haven't had another one, and it's like, dude, come on. Like, I'd love to see the character reinvented somehow for now. You know, and even if they went back to the comic roots and it's like, okay, it's like its own world kind of period piece, because that's how Warren Beatty's was. But him as Big Boy Caprice in that role, because nobody had made a movie. They had made serials and, of course, radio shows. They had made animated series, which I grew up with as reruns because they had affiliates that ran it back there, you know, syndication. But that for me was like when I still had an iPhone and I actually bought my my Apple Watch. It was literally just so I could go calling Dick Tracy. Yeah, about a day and a half after that, I got tired of it. I'm like, why the fuck did I buy this thing? So, but that role he was so great, you know.
Yeah.
Everything he owns, I own. If you work for him, you work for me. All right, come on, sweetheart. Because he spends a lot of scenes with Madonna, and it's okay. We're going to get away. You're going to pay for this, you know. The man had a blast in that role. And I remember when they did ads for it, and people were like, I think they were a little bamboozled, because some might not even have realized it. But you had James Caan, you had Dustin Hoffman, you had Kathy Bates, Madonna, William Forsythe, who played Flat Top and was fantastic, Edo Rost, who played Itchy, 30 seconds, no more dick, 30 seconds, no more dick. And you also had James Toland, who was Strickland from The Back to the
I
Future
didn't
movies.
realize half of these people were fucking in the movie, and I've seen the
Yeah,
movie.
it has a fantastic cast, and I love the fact that for a lot of them, being and of course Beatty being a very good director and very technical and knows where to put a camera, but you look at like the cast and it was like that was like such a huge, especially at that time, right at that point where Beatty was considered, not that he wasn't popular, but it was like 90s, so he was like going into his, you know, his writer. He had already done a lot of writing and directing, but it was very much in him going into that kind of long statesman. I mean, not like old, not like Salad Days or anything like that, but where it's like, okay, he's in his 50s, so he's really going to pick the projects he wants. He's really going to, you know, spend years doing things he wants to be doing. You know, that's huge. And for him to really do and give so much to that and be able to bring like half the A-list of Hollywood at the time with him. You know, he had Glenn Heady, who was his girlfriend. And, you know, just, I mean, you look at like the IMDb and it's like, oh my God, this person was in this movie. You know, you had Seymour Cassell. Like, you had this great cast who, I don't know what he was like as a director, but you can't help but to go, wow, this must have been like dress up. Like, especially for a lot of that crowd that was in the movie, they grew up with Dick Tracy, like really reading the comics, the cartoons, the radio shows, and actually going like, you know, where you can't help but he went to some of these people and went, hey, remember that shit we used to love about 30 or so years ago? I'm going to make a movie out of that. And what I'm literally going to do is I'm going to take a backlot and I'm going to paint it in primary colors to make it look like we're in an old school walking, talking comic strip. What do you think? Because in some ways, you know, that was right around the time where comic book movies obviously was a big deal. But with everybody clinching to kind of get that, there was a lot of misfires. So the fact that Dick Tracy got made and made so well, but it was also a case of like, okay, let's play with these characters. Because you had Dick Tracy in 90, and then 94, you had The Shadow. So we started getting back, and then we had The Phantom in 97. So it was an experiment, and it didn't exactly play out the way studios wanted it to, but it was basically an experiment in trying to revive a lot of these older characters. You know, the only one of the ones they should have tried and they didn't, which is a little unfortunate, is like Flash Gordon. That would have been, I still pine for a big screen Flash Gordon. I even now, like to this day, I still pine for that and hope that in my time left in this plane of existence, we get that. Because you look at so many, I mean, even Star Wars, but you look at so many things that for many years were inspired by Flash Gordon. There would be no Sin City if Dick Tracy didn't happen. Absolutely. Well, and even though a lot of the techniques were different, Dick Tracy helped open the doors, and some good, some bad. Like I said, you know, some was like the great experiment that didn't work. But when you started looking at some of these movies that they decided to make from these comic books, you couldn't help but to go, oh, Green Hornet. Oh, this, oh, that. And it's characters you kind of want to see, but you're also like, how's that going to work? It goes back to the generational thing. Like now, I would love to see a Shadow movie. Sam Raimi wanted to make one in the 90s. And the company who owns the rights didn't want him to make it. They refused. So that's how we got Darkman. Because Darkman was literally his rift of trying to get a Shadow movie made. And even now he's like, I would love to make a, he was like, they're very particular about the rights and who has them. And probably even more so now than before, because the Baldwin one was a flop. And it sucks because that movie is really quite good. I think they did justice to the character. I think with the effects, they overreached because some of the effects, I mean, they don't all hold up, obviously. But in 94, like his Cloud the Mind powers, those effects were not the best, but they tried. But that was also ILM. So it's like, over time, if you can find a way to really get these characters to kind of go and see where you can take them. But now a lot of them have stagnated because unfortunately, there's just a lot of slop movies and a lot of characters where until the studio is ready, you're not going to see somebody really work on it, especially if the studio's like, oh, you want me to shove $200 million into this. Who's going to watch it? So that's why with some of these characters, I mean, even with Seth Rogen, and that movie definitely has its issues. I love the final climax. I mean, a car chase that goes into kind of like a full-on gun battle. Like, I enjoy climaxes, especially for those kind of movies that just go for it. That was such a kitchen sink approach where it's just, hey, let's shoot up half of LA, end up in a 10-story building, and then while we're at it, let's have a car chase in there and shoot the shit out of that too. Even with your reservations or concerns about the whole movie, that worked. And I loved what they did in some cases. Some stuff I was like, yeah, it's not really, it doesn't really work. Like, sorry. But that, like the last 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, I love a pedal to the metal kind of finale where it's like, oh, you want cars? We got cars. You want shootouts? We got shootouts. You want it to turn into kind of this standoff in this newspaper. And of course it was meant to be kind of cathartic because who Seth Rogen's alter ego was. So I love that movie in its own way. I don't think it's fantastic, but I enjoy a lot of aspects. But like that last 25 minutes for me just hits all the buttons. And that movie got dumped in like January that year and actually didn't do horribly at the box office, but it didn't exactly break 750 million plus either. Hence why we haven't seen a new iteration of it. And we probably won't soon. But the fact that Dick Tracy got pulled off the way that it did, and the people that was involved, like you can't beat that. Like, it's pretty impressive.
Right. Yeah, definitely not. And that's the
and of
I'm
course,
behind on a lot of these superhero films.
And of course, the fact that Warren Beatty came up to me and he was like, "You want to do it?" I said, "No." And then I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Ha, Warren, gotcha. I'll do it." Of course, you know who would have been great in that movie, and unfortunately, well, hello there, yow. I'll tell you, I'm a part of this. I'm a part of this movie called Dick Tracy. No, it's not a porno. Wait, is it a porno? It's rare that someone would offer me a porno. Yow!
That's good. Oh, that's good.
That would be cool to have a Dick Tracy who would do that. I think it'd be a good idea just to have him out there, see if he likes it. So there's this lion. He's the king of the jungle out there in the savannah. Flowing mane, big tail. Wow. That's right. That's what I would love to see. Christopher Walken do like fucking Net Geo.
Right.
Look here.
Right.
We have gazelles out here on a pond. What are they doing? Huh? I didn't know a pond was a place for gazelle. Now I know. I would sign up for that. I would sign up for that in a heartbeat. And I gotta give love to Sin City. I tried watching the second one, and it wasn't like I hated it. I just didn't get a chance to finish it. But I remember reading Sin City. And a lot of Frank Miller's, a lot of what he does plays with the structure of noir. Because he loves film noir. You know, as far as like, you know, Sunset Boulevard and They Made Me a Criminal, and even a lot of those like serials with those detective types. So I remember reading and loving Sin City. And then they turned around and went, yeah, let's make a movie. And it was crazy because it was crazy. Yeah. It was weird to be able to think that between all the hits or misses of all these comic book related movies, they would pull off Sin City, and Robert Rodriguez was the one to kind of crack the code. Where he was, God, I'm old. Where he would basically kind of just have that, okay, here's what I want to try to do. Like, he had to really convince Frank Miller they could do this. And part of that convincing was very much like, okay, we know that the ideal of building this like a regular set doesn't work. And we know that because the comic book exists in such a way with the black and white, we would have to you know, really present it. So that's where he was, because you got to remember, Rodriguez had almost no sets. Everything that's integrated in each image is mostly CGI that he did at Troublemaker Studios himself. So it wasn't just a case of like, oh, hey, let's see if we can pull this off. He really had to bring a proof of concept to this.
Right.
Because other than that, you know, Frank Miller had kind of run into that with studios where it was like, hey, I want to try this. Hey, I want to try that. And he got burned on some of it. So the fact that he would kind of come around again, it wasn't just going to be okay, just leave a big bag of money. It was, no, you have to convince me why. And why them. And a lot of it just came back to someone, especially like Robert Rodriguez, who does, even now, is kind of like, you know, first and foremost, mindset-wise, he's an indie filmmaker. He sees himself as an indie filmmaker. So it's very much a case of, if you know the tone, if you know what you're going for, you've got a better than average chance to pull it off, I think. It worked with Dick Tracy. It worked with Sin City. And that's very difficult because if you have to try to explain that to a studio, they're not always going to get the message. It is not par for the course that they're going to be like, oh, you want to do this? Okay, we get it. No, in most cases, they don't get it. But if you can somehow put a dollar sign behind it, where people can go, oh, you want to make this, and this is going to make money. Let's fucking do that. So it's, as per usual, it comes back to dollars and cents in most cases, and it is very much a type of it's the system in place. It's the mechanism where, oh, you want to do this? Well, we have to see if there's a market, and we have to do focus groups, and we have to do this. So it's not always cut and dry where it's like, hey, let's set out to make something, make art, if you will. It doesn't really work like that. But you know what movie it did work on? This is my segue, by the way.
I had a feeling it was going to be, but see, I can't say whether it worked or it didn't work yet because I gotta kind of keep you guessing for a second here. But,
Okay.
But, so the issue is that, like I said, so I've just recently started watching films again. I want to make movies again. Like I love all facets of cinema yet again. So I've just decided to immerse myself in films, and a lot of these now are going to be movies that I've never seen before, or newer films. So I used to have a huge problem, or I'm not going to say used to, because in a sense I still don't know, but I've seen a lot of A24 movies in the past 2 weeks. And I'll say, like, I saw Hereditary in the theater.
Right.
And I hated it. I hated it. And that's why I never watched MIDSOMMAR, because I knew it was, an Ari film, and I did not like Hereditary, so I was like, oh my
Am I
god.
gonna like this? Yeah.
I'm like, no. I'm like, Hereditary was a hot pile of shit. I'm like, I will not like this movie, so I will not watch it. So I bypassed it. So then, years went by, and I haven't, been watching a lot of films. So now I'm back into the films. So I decided to watch. Oh, what was it? Okay. So obviously, I love my Paul Rudd. So I decided to watch Death of a Unicorn, A24. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, this really was not half bad. I'm like, could I be wrong? Could A24 actually be a decent company and actually make decent movies? Have I totally been misguided? Have I been biased over the years, and maybe I need to give it another shot? Because I really like Death of a Unicorn. I was like, this is weird, and I like it. And okay. So then I went on to Heretic, because I had heard some people say Heretic was decent, and I'm like, well, Hugh Grant playing sort of the type of character that he played in that film, I think I'm gonna give it a shot. So I watched that one, and lo and behold, I loved that one. And I'm like, wow, right now A24 is 2 for 2. This is different. I did not expect this to happen. I did not expect myself to like Heretic at all. But again, I love that one. So then the opportunity came to see actually, so after Heretic was over, because I watched it on Max, and you know how when the movie ends on Max, you get You May Also Like. So because Sophie Thatcher was in Heretic, Companion popped up as a recommended film.
Did you watch Companion?
You know what? I said, I'm gonna give this a fucking shot. So I clicked on it and I watched it. And I gotta tell you something. That movie blew my fucking mind. I was like,
yes!
I'm like, this is wow. I said, Theo said it was good.
I love that movie.
Didn't see how it could be good. But I see what you're talking about. I'm like, Jack Quaid, he plays like such a fucking character, and I'm just like,
He's such a douchebag. He's so good at it.
You know, and you know, the one of the opening lines that she says in the film where she's like about Josh, and she says that, you know, blah blah blah, until I killed him. I'm like, this is gonna be something. So I watched it and
Yes.
I was like, damn, this is really fucking good. So then after that, now this is all like 2 Sundays ago, I guess it was now. I
Mhm.
watched Heretic, then I went to Companion, and I was like, after Companion was over, I said, you know what? I'm going through. I go to Paramount Plus, the shit streamer, and I'm looking around and I see Novocaine, and that also has Jack Quaid in it. So I was like, you know what? I'm like, I wonder if Jack Quaid is going to be different in this one because the premise seems different. So you know what? I clicked on fucking Novocaine and I sat there and I watched fucking Novocaine. And I also enjoyed fucking Novocaine. And I'm like, God, that's 3 fucking movies that I watched in one fucking day. I cannot tell you the last time that I've done that. I mean, it's been years. Years.
Isn't it great?
Years. But I love that.
Well, and I think, you know, that's how you kind of rediscover passions, is because obviously if you had watched certain movies, that wasn't going to happen. So to be able to kind of come back to this stuff is a big deal. It's important. I adore Companion. It's probably, at least for the time being, it is my favorite movie of this year because it is so well written and structured. Sophie Thatcher, who is amazing, but also the case of, well, she's amazing in it, but also it's like, this is one of those movies, especially in that role, because it's almost like kind of counter, as far as, not necessarily counter programming, but where the twist is. Because it's like, oh, well, you expect it to be like a killer robot because, oh, I killed him. But it's like, no, you gave life to this thing and did what you needed it to be. Like, it's very much a case of kind of turning the genre on its head. It goes back to what I had mentioned earlier with Severance, where you make this grounded sci-fi, because they show a lot of this stuff in the movie, but they don't go into like, this fantastical world. A lot of it is like maybe years from now, not that many years either, because they already have like sex toys and sex dolls at a level beyond a blow-up doll.
Right.
But this is literally like, it's a babe droid, and he calls it, at one point he calls her a fuckbot, but it is very much, meant to be a companion. But to turn the genre point on itself before running into the concept of, hey, how about we do this instead? Because it's not a basic setup, especially when, you really realize, like, you can't help but to root for Iris and be very, like, they, and a lot of it is obviously metaphor, even allegory for, like, taking back your life in a toxic relationship, because he does that a lot. Like in the script, like Jack Quaid, I'm a nice guy. Like, okay, if you have to tell somebody you're a nice person.
Yeah, you're not a nice person.
Well, you're certainly, it's more you're trying to convince yourself so you can convince them. And that's where it gets tricky. But also, they call that out, and they do so very intentionally, where it's very much a case of, trying to just tell people where it's like, the spin or the twist, if you will, is really more it's very intricate when you really think about it. Because one of my favorite scenes of probably the whole movie, and it's really like, it's up there with the ending, but one of my favorite parts is when she gets his phone. By the way, spoiler, folks, when she gets his phone and she starts kind of playing with like her eye color and her languages and all of these things to kind of like, oh, so I can do this stuff now that I couldn't do before. Like, I had someone control me, and gaslighting and having those type of, it's very much a case of showing that ideal of people taking their lives back after being in bad relationships and crappy situations. Like, it's phenomenal to watch that unfold. Like, I literally was like, wow, this is pretty brilliant and just so smartly done. But I love when she's like, okay, I can't go back to the apartment. I can't do this. Like, once you have your power back, what are you going to do with it? But when she does the go back to the car, drive home. By the way,
That was great.
By the way, Iris, this is a great plan. Well, thank you, Josh's car. And I don't know if you realize this. I didn't pick up on it right away. It took a minute. So he named her Iris, right?
Right.
Okay. When they wheel her in,
oh my God, is that song playing is that song playing?
From the Goo Goo Dolls. I didn't pick up on it at first, but
I heard a Goo Goo Dolls song and it didn't register what one it was, but now that you're saying it, it's like,
it was Iris.
Holy fuck, you're right.
And I don't want the world to see me, because I don't think that they'd understand. Yeah, it didn't dawn on me until I watched it here at home, and I went, what? Like, it's Iris. Like, I had that moment where I went, fucking hell. Yeah, I loved when that clicked for me, because it was another case of like, that's a pretty good planted seed where you're like, okay, that's slick. But yeah, I love when she's going through those scenarios and then they show like the what ifs, and then she's driving home and she was like, may I say, Iris, this is a great plan. Aw, thank you, Josh's car. That had me rolling. And I think I had told you, but one thing for me, like, I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, I'm down with this. But I took my girlfriend and I took my son to see it, and I was excited for it. And I remember sending him trailers. I probably mentioned it before, but I was stoked, and I was like, let's go to the movies. And my son is down for anything. He too, like us, is a fan of film, a student of film, if you will. So he's down for anything. And if he ends up coming out of a movie and just says he flat out hates it, that's saying something. But they knew nothing about Companion going into it.
Yeah.
And they were just like,
I didn't either, really.
They were just
trailers. So.
Yeah, they walked out of there and they were like, whoa, that snuck up on us. And I was like, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Because it really did. They were like, we did not. Like, and they were even like, did you realize? Did you know? And I said, yeah, I kind of figured it. I kind of gauged it. But yeah, it was one of those movies where I was like, boom, like this works. And I think at the end of the day, even as great as everybody is, and they really are, the person who buoys the whole thing, of course, is Sophie Thatcher. Like, it doesn't work if that kind of performance doesn't buoy the movie. and she is phenomenal, and I wish it had gotten a little more love in the theater, but I it looks like it is going to be kind of brought, and I hope so, but it's like on Max right now, and it is literally one of those things like, check it out, like it's worth a look see, you know.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
Yeah, I was so far, as far as the movies I have seen, because a lot of people made a big deal about Sinners, and I really enjoy it, but
oh God, I can't. You brought
that
I
movie.
watched it.
Oh, did you watch it? Okay, so I have to ask, okay?
Yeah.
Because Steph did not like it. She walked out of the theater and she was like, nope. And I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's the revelation for movies that the industry is trying to make it out to be.
It's not, and I think that's what really hurt. At least what hurt it, in my opinion, because you hear so much about it and how it's like game changing, and it's this and it's that, and it just doesn't feel like that. They're making it out to be something that it really isn't, and that to me hurts it. Like I think if you didn't hype these things up so much, like something like that, it's like I think it would fare better.
Yeah.
But I'm in her camp because I couldn't. And I was like, "Eesh."
Here's what I got out of the movie, and I can tell you the goods and bads. So number one, the first half of the movie works better for me than the second half.
Mhm.
And the reason for that being is that part of it takes you into what life was like then. And so many things are done so well and meticulously, and it is very like the attention to detail. You know, Ryan Coogler actually got kind of he sought the kind of assistance of Christopher Nolan, because the first half looks a lot like Christopher Nolan. And the composition is there, and Ryan Coogler knows how to shoot a movie. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. However, there is a lot there that screams more Nolan than Coogler. And a lot of that is based against, he shot it for IMAX. If you want help with getting something to IMAX, you might as well get the IMAX wizard. And the one that comes to mind for me is Christopher Nolan. So a lot of that first half, done extremely well, done smartly. The cast is shown off so great. For me, even with all the great performances, Delroy Lindo, who always knocks it out of the park, he was my favorite. That man committed to that role so well, and just like the whole time you're just engaged to him. And I think for some people, and he's made a ton of movies even recently and stuff, but you know, as you get older, it's like, yeah. And he was actually supposed to be part of that Marvel Blade movie that never happened. So there's been some time in between, but for people who kind of forgot that, it's like, oh shit, yeah, Delroy Lindo is quite the talent. And it's like, well, yeah, and he always has been. Like, look at the people he's worked with in his career. You know, Spike Lee several times, and he's done action and drama and just so many things. He's actually going to be in the new Kong Godzilla movie, which once again, like a feather in his hat. It's like, okay, so you're going to go from Sinners, this great role that you can tell from a backstory standpoint, he knew how to take that and translate it to the performance. And then you're going to turn around and probably cash a nice paycheck in the process and run from imaginary monsters on a green screen. Like, I mean, I don't want to use the term that's range, but it reminds you how talents can, like, you know, one day I'll do this small movie. and I'll be great. And then the next time it's like, hey, I'm going to give this a shot, and I'm probably going to make more for it because I'm going to have to do press and have to do this. So for me, from a standpoint of like roles in that movie, and as much as Michael B. Jordan is great, you know, it almost feels standard where it's like, well, yeah, of course he's going to be engaging. Like, look at him. But with Delroy Lindo, watching that performance come up and having, it just plays so well through the whole movie. And there's so many things where, because like you have like, things from the Bible, like it has a lot of roots in like other kind of storied, almost like old scripture storytelling. And I do love the musical bit, even though I think that goes out a bit too far. Like, I love what he's trying to say. I love the eclecticism of that kind of scene where he's really, gauging the audience to be like, okay, if you're in for this, here's where you might have that moment of, what is this? And of course, people did. So that first half of the movie works for me extensively well. And once again, as a whole, I enjoy the movie very, very much. But let's be real about something. And I believe you will agree.
Yeah.
That movie, in many, many ways, is an expensive, overproduced remake of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Well, here's the thing with me. The vampires, it didn't seem like a vampire movie to me, because I was talking to somebody about this after I saw it, and they made a point, and I'll tell you what they said really clicked with me. The vampires were more of an afterthought.
Yes.
What that movie felt like was blacks versus the Klan, and they threw vampires in there just to kind of like measure it out. But you didn't need the vampires. It would have been a better movie, for me, without the vampires.
Right.
And just, do that.
Well, what I think will be kind of difficult, in kind of breaking the 2 points, it kind of goes back to the From Dusk Till Dawn. Like, the twist, but it's nothing's planted. Like, and it's not the first movie to kind of play with that, where it's like, oh God, all of a sudden, like, we're in a bad situation that goes worse. But,
right.
The main leads are criminals. Most of the people in the movie are either damaged, criminals, or both. And then the vampire side plays weird because, it happens out of the blue. And with the building, it's like wrong place, wrong time. Until you kind of figure out towards the end, it's like, well, that building's always been bad news. So the crackers who, sold them the building, you can't help but to be like, well, yeah, we kind of knew it was bad. We didn't know it was supernatural bad, but it does click to the ideal of, well, yeah, we're going to put vampires in there because we said there's going to be vampires. Like, as a whole, I don't think the vampires get a ton of screen time. And
right. No, they don't.
And even when you have that after credit scene, which I enjoyed, because it was kind of,
I didn't stick around for it, so I don't.
Oh, really? That scene was kind of fun for me. And the reason why it was fun for me, it was because since it was the 90s and they were visiting him, like, who was a young man, and then fast forward. And then, of course, they used Buddy Guy, so I wept because freaking virtuoso. as far as a guitar player. He's one of those guys. It's like, well, yeah, the guitar was literally invented so this man, this legend, could play it. That scene was fun because it was in the 90s and they were all decked out in Chicago, New York 90s. Like you could tell they were playing. They were playing too hard to blend in, if you will. But they had money and they had means, so it was like, okay. And I love that turn too, where it was like, his brother was like, whatever happened, I still see my brother. Like I still see my face when he looks back at me. And he was like, just take her, get out of here now, before somebody else stakes you or I stake you. He goes, here's that moment. And he even said, he was like, yeah, best day of my life and worst day of my life. Because, it was the last time I saw the sun. It was the last time I saw my brother. And the last time I saw my brother sacrifice for me. So me and my girl could escape. Like that was a fun scene to kind of play with. But everything escalates in such a way. And it's anytime you do that, especially if you're playing it so stone cold and so serious, you are going to find yourself being disjointed, regardless of how much the movie costs to make, regardless of the talent you have, regardless of how well you write it or structure it. You are going to play with, oh, this was a gangster movie, and now it's not. Oh, at the end of this, it's a vampire movie, but before that, it's not. They don't. They do the voodoo thing and stuff, and they lay some of those breadcrumbs down. But I can see why it's disjointed, and I can see why people don't like it, because as technically good as a lot is done, the acting, the attention to detail, the production design, cinematography, the disjointment between those 2 points feels like a very much do about nothing, especially considering you can't really give in to the twist because there's vampires. Like it's not, I mean, a lot of it doesn't, there's more in the execution than there is the actual ABC of the storytelling, because in no time flat, they're vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns into this, it turns into this kind of horror movie, and it's kind of bifurcated. What worked a little better, and not just because it was more of a B-side kind of movie or B movie with From Dusk Till Dawn, is that because it is that type of movie, they're not going to try to impose the biblical, the Cain and Abel, all this type of stuff, and the existential with like all the music, which I thought was cool. And remember, at the end of From Dusk Till Dawn, you find out that the club, the Titty Twister, was an Aztec temple.
Right.
For ritual sacrifices. So it's not just, well, here's this building we sold these guys, and now let's go do this and do that. It was, oh shit, this makes some sense now. Because especially as soon as they start showing the inside of the Titty Twister, you look around and you're like, this is not a regular club. Like I remember seeing it in the theater and going, this is not, this isn't just a club. Like there's more going on, and the element, the type of people there, and like what they show and put on. Like there's a lot where you're like, okay, that tracks, especially at the end. But none of it is played to be serious. None of it is meant to be bigger than what it is, where it's meant to be a B movie of, it's a road movie. and then they get in with some vampires. Like, it's such a huge difference between starting from A to B and going from bad to worse, and then going to something like Sinners, where it's like, well, let's play with that, but we're going to have a $90 million budget instead of a $20 million budget. And because we have the kind of money we do to play with, we're going to be a little heavy-handed on a lot of the metaphors. And we're not just going to play this for yucks. Like, we're going to try to take this in a direction maybe it doesn't need to be. And that's why for me, I'm like, okay, I get why people wouldn't like it. Even though I enjoyed it very much, but a lot of it is heavy-handed. It's Much Ado About Nothing, and it's an expensive, in many ways, remake of From Dusk Till Dawn. And I think From Dusk Till Dawn did it a bit better because they weren't trying to make like this grand movie. They weren't trying to make absolute cinema. It was like, yeah, two crooks go on the run and they hide out in a club. Little do they know, the club's full of vampires. Not, oh, hey, there's a vampire. And now he comes here. Like, there's, once again, I think it goes back to the disjointedness. And probably my biggest beef isn't exactly the movie's fault. And when I say that, it kind of plays into just the mindset, if you will, the thought that Hollywood is really playing with their own dicks on this one and sucking themselves off because they firmly believe that they've cracked the code on making original content again. And it's like, no, you haven't. Like, yes, it did well. Great. People enjoyed it. Wonderful. Do you really think you saved the box office? No. Not even close. And I think that's one of the biggest issues because they're really playing with themselves on this one, where they're really proud of this movie, and Warner Brothers and Hollywood is running with it to kind of go, see, we still make original cool stuff too. And it's like, yeah, but not always. It doesn't mean you're going to knock this out of the park. And once again, I think we're going to get into that territory where trends, as we tend to talk about a great deal, because Hollywood does that and they like doing it to themselves, almost to the point where they fuck themselves over a lot. But
right,
we're gonna see it, twin this and twin that, and oh, it just so happens, they go to they actually end up being bronies, and then they go into a club where they don't like bronies.
Oh,
and they're gonna find a way to take something and turn it in a direction it doesn't need to, and it's not the first time, and it sure as shit won't be the last.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, and that's but that's but that's, like I said, I watched it because everybody was like raving, and I'm like, you know what? I just gotta see what this is all about. And I was like, well,
yeah.
No.
No, you are. So as far as the camp of being not pro sinner, you are not alone. Yeah. And it's funny because, she's like, does that mean there's something wrong with me? And I said, no. Like, even when something is spelled out, if it still plays to art, if you will, it's still subjective. Not everybody is going to enjoy. There are some people like me who love Lord of the Rings, and then there are some people who it's like they walked for 9 fucking hours.
Mm-hmm. That's what they say.
Like we watched the fucking granola hike with amazing special effects, but we didn't, and it's the same thing for The Godfather. Like some people watch that like me, and it's like, this is a masterpiece because It doesn't just feel like it was made. It feels like it was crafted. I feel the same way with Apocalypse Now. And then there are some people who are going to watch The Godfather and go, the fuck is this? Like, what's wrong with this guy? Like, what's wrong with how he talks? You know, oh, look at what Santino, what they've done to my baby boy. Oh, Santino. And people are going to be like, fuck it. Did he just have dental surgery? Like, why the fuck does he sound like that?
Right.
So, yeah, there were some people. And for me, I pride myself on loving the ones that kind of slip through the cracks. And then people watching go, oh, shit, that was pretty good. One of those for me is a B movie called I Come in Peace.
Yes.
With Dolph Lundgren. I fucking love that movie. And it is a little kind of movie. And it's just fun. It's a B movie. And once again, it doesn't take itself too seriously. It is literally drug runners from outer space. It is not, let's discuss good and evil, or let's do this and, twins and whatever. At no point did they make that movie and go, we might solve all of people's problems with this movie. And it's like, no. At no point do we think we're making that kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's not that movie there. It's just not. And they knew that from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
And some movies, when they lean into that, they're more the better for it. Another one is The Hidden, which is one of my all-time favorites, where it is literally like, hey, let's go chase an alien assassin criminal. Ready? Like, seriously, like it's a buddy cop movie, but with aliens. And even from a pitch standpoint, nobody should go, you know what? We're going to cut you a check for $100 million. Like, go make this. It's like, no, that's meant to be the kind of filmmaking that you need somebody who's sure of that script and sure of how they make it and shoot it. And Jack Shoulder, like, the man knew. I still think it's great. If they did a remake, I think that would be cool too. But if they didn't, I don't think anybody's going to fucking weep about it.
No, because that movie is great. I love that movie.
Yeah, I am such a huge fan of that one. But for the grand event, because I'm on pins and needles for this one.
Yes.
So yes, MIDSOMMAR, folks.
Yes. MIDSOMMAR. Yes.
This is a movie like no other movies. It doesn't have a lot of tropes. It doesn't play like a regular movie. And it is from Ari Aster, who is a director who definitely is, how do I put it? I wouldn't say he's dividing like in a bad way, but it's almost kind of like when you look at like Wes Anderson. Like at no point are you like, yeah, everybody has to love a Wes Anderson movie. It's like, no, that guy really just makes the movies he makes are very much his cup of tea.
Right.
And this is definitely no different.
Well, like I said, I'm coming into this now. When you suggested watching this, and obviously with the film watching resurgence, I was like, oh, cool. And then you're like, MIDSOMMAR, and I'm like, no. I put off watching this as long as I could, and last week, I know I lost power here for most of Thursday into
Mhm.
Friday, so last week didn't happen. So, you know, and I didn't watch so I watched the movie. So today's Thursday, so we're doing that. I watched the movie yesterday. And yeah, I think I messaged you when I started it.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I started it because what I was expecting, I didn't get. I got the complete opposite of what I was expecting. And I will say this, that after watching that movie, I now want to go back and rewatch Hereditary because maybe I missed something. Because Midsummer is a motherfucking masterpiece of cinema, in my opinion. And I was
Oh my god!
I was like it ended, and I was like, I was like, you liked this movie, and I said, and I'm like talking to myself. It's like you liked this movie, and I said, yeah, I did. I loved this movie. This goes
Especially when you
beyond
don't see it coming.
liked, and I was just like, and see, like I used to think A24 was like a steaming shit pile of a film company, and now it's like A24 is my fucking love language, and they're like just these weird fucking wacky trips of fucking movies that I just want to keep fucking reliving over and over and over and over again.
I
So
love that you loved it as much as you did. And it's not like I thought you were gonna hate it, but it does go
I was,
back
dude,
to
I was expecting to hate it. You don't understand. I was expecting it. When I started it, I was like, I saw Ari Aster, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, just bear through it, bear through it, bear through it, bear through it. And then, like, it got in there, and I'm like, Florence Pugh is a little whiny, and I don't know how I feel about that. I'm like, she's a little maybe too whiny for my taste, but I get where she's coming from, and I'm like, we're just in this fucking weird, trippy fucking world, and I want to take the fucking mushrooms or whatever they're fucking taking
oh
too.
my god. That that was one of those movies where, once again, like I said, there are people who watch it and they're like, nope, just no. And for me, it's like, I mean, any movie is, I think, worth giving a shot to. Like I enjoy, discovering not just talents, but like I'm like you, where not just with A24, but like the weirder or the more indie
Mhm.
does it for me more than a lot of this other stuff, because a lot of it is regurgitation. But certain
Right.
directors is literally about finding that line where you go, oh shit, I didn't see that coming. That is very interesting and off-putting and unique, and just and especially so a lot of it plays to allegory. So for those who don't know, I will break down a very, and when I say simple synopsis, this is about as digestible I can get as far as description. Okay. So it starts with a murder suicide. So basically, Florence Pugh's character, she's I mean, I guess the best way to put it, she's not well. And she's in a relationship with this fucking douchebag. And that's the best way to put it. And that's the nicest thing you can say about the guy. Because he's very much like, And it's not just even a relationship thing. It's like, you know, she doesn't exist to him until he says so. Like, you know, you see one-sided relationships and people not get along and whatever. But this is very much a case. It's like gaslighting and the ideal of like, it's a relationship of one and it's centered around them and only them. And that's a lot at play here. So it's this woman, this douchebag and their friends,
right,
who get invited with another friend. We use the term loosely, to this village, if you will, during this certain time of celebration. And what transpires after that? I it's not that I can't get into it, it's I wouldn't want to. Because there's so many banana things that happens. And the crazy shit that happens in this movie is not for the sake of crazy shit happening. All this stuff connects. Like it's structured well, the storytelling's well. There's a lot of allegory going on, especially between her place in this festival with this community. And it's basically and I guess the best way to put it is like they're this Scandinavian cult that has these rituals, and it's crazy because it's beautifully photographed, and like that by itself is a conceit, because what happens in a lot of it is very grim and very dark.
Yes.
But also, especially from the perspective of Florence Pugh's character, is very, it's very life affirming for a character or two, where in some cases, for some people, hey, you want to see this, you want to see some people get their comeuppance, because there's only one character you really want to invest in. The rest kind of fucking suck.
Right. Yeah.
And it's crazy because, like, when you start realizing what's happening, and I'm not even talking about like the town, like what's happening from a ritualistic standpoint. Once you start really getting those pieces, you will find, how do I put it? You will find this very fitting, so hard to break down because there's so much great foreshadowing. The things that happen, especially to the boyfriend, because at no point, oh yeah, hey, who wants a meat pie?
and you know what else? There's a scene, you know, when that girl or woman or whatever chooses him to kind of like mate with.
Yep.
And then
that seed.
Okay, so that was probably one of the strangest scenes that I've ever seen in my, because it's like she's just like,
it
you got
is
people, like they're all having an orgasm.
Yep.
And I'm like, and then there's like a woman that's like pushing on his ass and kind of like forcing him into her, and I'm like,
yep,
this just seems I'm like, I'll go with it, but you know, I was already in at that point though, so I couldn't get out after that.
Well, so was he.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that movie that movie is just so brilliant. And the thing is too is that you only really root for one character based off of, once again, it's not a case of, oh, we'll see how this goes or whatever. A lot of it just plays in a way where you're like, okay, because you have to kind of stand back in awe of a lot of it, where you're kind of like, oh shit, is this gonna how is this gonna go? And for me, I very much I remember watching it for the first time because my girlfriend had seen it and she was like, I don't know, I don't know what just happened. And another thing is too is it's not a particularly short movie. It's not boring and it's not drawn out, but it's not a short movie.
I want to watch the director's cut now though, because the theatrical is 228 and the director's is like 251 or something.
Holy shit!
So, and see, I talked to someone after when I said that we were going to be covering this on the show, and he says, "Well, what version are you going to watch?" And I said,
Right.
"Well." I said, I don't have access to my disc. And I said, the only thing I can get is the theatrical cut. And he says, well, that's good. He said, because I watched the director's cut and within 20 minutes I was sleeping.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of nuance. Not everything happens. That not everything, I guess the best way to put it, not everything happens in such a way. Not everything happens in such a way to where it's all like boom, boom, boom. From a story standpoint, things play out pretty straightforward. There's twists in some places, but not. Sorry, that was a rough one. But definitely not. But definitely not. How do I put it? Definitely not where it's like, oh, well, it's just this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? From that standpoint, where it's just, oh, that, and this. A lot of how the movie works and what makes it work so well is you don't, especially once you really dig into the village, you start really seeing this thing go. And a lot of it is very set up to play out in a certain way. That's why, when all the friends start dying off, you're like, because it's like, well, who's really the sacrifice? But it's also like, well, they brought these assholes here. They're the Swedish guy was like, hey, the more the merrier. So at the end of the day, Flo's journey through, or her character from top to bottom, is so life affirming, and especially for her kind of shedding all this baggage, especially with how this starts. And, she's on so many levels, she's stuck, like many of us. And part of her being stuck plays into this asshole doing it to her.
Right.
And truth be told, even with all the bad, crazy shit that happens, yes, it's shocking. But once you start kind of realizing, it almost feels like even in the end that she's kind of screwed over, but at least she got her power back on some level. But once you start realizing that these guys are kind of fucked, like there's like they're not exactly captives, but the town and the town folk have decided their fate.
Oh yeah.
You know without a shadow of a doubt, most of this group is not fucking walking out of there.
No.
And that will be kind of the end of it. And once again, even in the case of what happens to Flo, like, I mean, she's not screwed, but it's like, it's where she's emerged to. Like when she's all in those flowers, like it looks fucking amazing, but you're also like, oh God. And what's so great is like visually, you know, it's very bright. And it's extremely inviting on a visual level. But then you kind of realize, how do I put it? You also kind of realize that she gets the best worst scenario. Especially when, you know, like the grass and the trip. That was one of the things about the movie that I love the most. When they were arguing over like, hey, so who wants to be stoned at what time? And we have to synchronize and schedule our being fucked up and on shrooms, acid, whatever. And they're all kind of basically drugged over for most of the movie.
Yeah.
That's kind of the fun at work.
Yeah, that's what I figured. They were high for the majority of it. So in most cases, I figured that a lot of them didn't even know what the fuck was going on because they were just high anyway. So they went with it, and by the time they realized, it was like,
well, especially once that happens, and they've kind of, because up until a certain point, they don't realize, like they think, oh well, this is all just sweet, and this is like medieval times for like Scandinavian people, and it's like, no, you are in another world. Like you haven't even conceived the ideal that you are somewhere,
right,
that you can't even grasp. Like the fact that they lasted as long as they did is amazing, but it's also based around what happened to them. Once again, the town, because of the town folk and the rules there and the rituals. And I've always loved when certain shows and movies can do this. You find a way to turn the town or the city into a character on itself. And this movie does that great, especially when it's like, hey, this might be cannibalistic pies with pubes in it. Like that's not weird at all. And that's part of like what I found crazy is like for the most part, like douchebag McGee, like he's sitting there eating pubes out of like a fucking pie, and he's like,
yeah,
oh well. And it's like, no.
Yeah, right.
First of all, that's a sanitary thing, but two, if it's a case where it's like, oh well, this is in here, and it's like, okay, why is this in here?
Exactly.
You probably want to take stock or note of that fact that you are somewhere, you know, that probably either has a hold on you or has plans for you.
Yeah, because he's just nonchalantly, I think I ate her pubes.
Yeah, and then, oh well, it's Tuesday. Like that happens. Like there's a chunk of that happens through a lot of their reactions with that stuff, where you're just kind of like, do you think it was just so happens, like they're even when they know shit gets real, they seem oblivious.
Right.
Where, and it's not denial, but it's like, especially once, two of the other friends kind of go missing, but they're like, oh yeah, so they're not here. That's okay. That should be good. And it's like, yeah, after the shit you've seen, like people, jumping off of fucking, mountains to sacrifice themselves, like you've seen all these things, and there's, in some ways, they're still like, so when is the pew pies again? Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of that feeling because you don't get invested in them, and I think that's intentional.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, there's a lot of that situation that's built around the cluelessness, and they're supposed to be in college and they have all this thesis back and forth shit, and it's like, does it really not click for you fuckheads what's happening? Like, are you really missing the point? And they are. That's why I can't help but to say, like, when they start dying off, you're like, that's cool.
Yeah. No,
the only one you're invested in, and it's not like Flo is upstaging them, but part of the investment of these characters comes back to, or the lack of investment comes back to how they treat the place once they get there. But especially, like for Flo's character, after all she's dealt with, and she comes to this place that's like, it's removed and it's serene, and she can kind of just be there. Even with King Asshole there, there's a lot of that situationally where you don't, where you don't really get, I mean, even more so, you don't get taken with the other characters. That's why, like, the two Chuckleheads, like, when they die, it's like, okay. Hey, look, his foot's sticking out of the thing, and he's got a rune mark, because it's a, they do everything with runes as far as, spells or rituals. But at no point are you like, oh no, it's like game night. Oh no, he died.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you don't feel connected to them. You don't want to feel connected to them. It doesn't translate that way. It doesn't play. It doesn't play to any of their strengths. It's very early on, it's, and not just in the ads, but like watching the movie itself, you get that it's about her. There's foreshadowing in the tapestries. Like, there particularly, there's a lot of wall stuff that's literally spells out, the power of this queen over the bear. And, a lot of it just unfolds. That was part of the beauty of it for me. Like, with not using a lot of tropes and not necessarily using twists, you're just, there's a great kind of fly on the wall that they don't pull any punches, but at no point is there like, oh, they're going to be saved, or this is going to happen. You're kind of along the ride, even though it feels longer than most movies in some ways. And it's just because things are just so done at that level. The man really knocked it out of the park. And once again, like, visually, like, oh my God, Like, you cannot help but to look at it and go, wait, this is a horror movie? Which is funny because in a lot of ways it doesn't play like a horror movie.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't.
Not
But
in
I
the
will say
traditional sense.
I do feel that he has a fascination with burning people.
He sure does.
I do think that he does have a fascination with that, which is now, but now do you think that I really should go back and revisit Hereditary? Because do you think that maybe I'm in a different mindset where maybe I'm more open to his style of filmmaking?
I think personally there is a great opportunity, because I'm like you. I love the ideal of rediscovering something, like going back to it and going, you know what? I didn't get it the first time. But when you're opened up to certain things and other movies, and you kind of start figuring out how they work. And Ari Aster is a perfect example of that, where you really try to kind of make heads or tails of some of his storytelling.
Mhm.
And it's great. Like, for me, there was so much that I loved. And I love the way it played out. And it was just brilliant. I like I said, I personally, watching it again, I still get back to feeling, okay, this is cool. This, and each time I watch it, I wouldn't say I pick up on certain things that I didn't before, but there's a lot to kind of, how do I put it? There's a lot to kind of play out, where you pick up subtle things here and there, not Iris playing in the background, but you pick up little bits and pieces of things where you kind of understand, oh, okay, this is the direction they're going. This is, and especially having watched it multiple times. No, I'm like you. Like, I love finding movies like that where you're just like, wait, what is, and that movie definitely doesn't disappoint, where you start kind of, once you start picking up on the beats, especially with like some of the weird transitions where she's like in the room and then on the plane, and the way the movie moves to kind of get to that point, especially considering once you get to the town, you get that kind of like, it's all too perfect. And they're playing that role where it's like, yeah, it's supposed to be all too perfect. And guess what? Like, you're going to kind of realize they're not exactly fucking around.
Right. Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely
I am so glad that you enjoyed it as much as you did, because I wasn't sure which way it was going to go. I was like,
yeah, well, that's why I wanted to wait. I was like, I'm not giving him this before that. Like, I said, I need to save this for the air, because I think that it would be a better reaction this way than just,
well, because we've had, like, we'll discuss doing a movie, we pick a movie, and we'll talk about it a little bit and trade notes beforehand. Where we have a lot of those we have a lot of those moments where we're like, okay, well, we'll check this out and we'll figure this out and so on and so forth. This was the one time you were tight-lipped about it. And it wasn't even like, and what was so great is like at no point did you like try to kind of toe the line. You were just like, yep, watched it. And that was it. You fucking left me hanging, which I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Well, because I was thinking, I'm like, how do I want to play this? I'm like, do I want to play it where, I'm in love with it? Do I want to play it where I hate it, or do I want to like just? I'm like, no, we'll just do it where you're neither this way nor that way. You're right there, and we'll just wait and see what you have to say when you're live. But like when I after I finished it, I was like, this solidifies that A24 is fucking my new favorite fucking film company at this point. I love that fucking. Now I am more. I'll tell you what. I am more confident than ever that they will do justice to Friday the 13th, and I think that Crystal Lake series that they're doing.
Right.
And I would really love to see them get Halloween now, because now I feel like there's people that are involved that, in a sense, I think they'll get it, and I think they can handle it. And I besmirched that company enough over the past years, primarily
Besmirched.
since 2000 and when Hereditary came out.
Right.
I was like, just ugh, I hated them. I thought it was like, anytime I saw that A24 was releasing a movie, I was like, nope. Nope.
Well, and I think like when you look at the way they started, like they were very much kind of this acquired taste. Where you were trying to figure out which way they were going to go, and in doing so, you didn't exactly get the feeling that they were your atypical type of place or type of studio. But for me, see, here's the thing. I kind of hope they don't get too far up their own ass with some of these franchises, because they haven't really to date been in a position where it's like, okay, we have to have this define us.
Right.
And for me, like, I think that's a big deal, because it's nice to see companies kind of do it on their own. Like it's not exactly comparable, but in many ways, A24 is like Miramax, where it's like, oh no, they did it themselves. Like they made their way, they made their own thing. And knowing that was always kind of their plan, or at least it played that way, I think was always important, because it was like, when you see A24, you're not sure what to think. And they've kind of, I don't want to say gone all over the place, but they've gone in some very unique directions. Where you try to gauge, it's like, okay, where are they going to go? Because then, you have stuff like Civil War, and then you have, stuff like The Materialist, but then you turn around and you have Ari Aster stuff, and then you have Heretic. So they're not just some studio that's trying to, make a buck per se. I mean, of course they want to make profit, so they keep going.
Right.
But it almost feels out of place that they would try to make it almost feels out of place that they would try to make it with franchises from elsewhere. Now, their spin on it obviously is very unique and very singular to them. But I mean, who knows what they could? I mean, you make a good point. It's like, well, you'd kind of have to sit back and see which direction they would go. But I feel like for them as a studio defining themselves on their own terms and not having to count on really acquiring anything or like, trying to shit out like a ton of sequels, because I don't think A24 has any sequels. I don't think they've reached that point yet, and I don't think they're really shooting for that point either.
No, I don't think so.
That's just not the kind of company they are, especially with a lot of the talent that they get and kind of bring on, if you will. So I love the fact that they've defined themselves in such a way. Miramax did that for a while, and then Miramax got really big for their britches. And that's how you ended up with like Dimension and them trying to split off. And one thing that didn't help is that they knew how to promote stuff in such a way where they infected other studios, because that's when you started getting major studios with independent shingles, where it was like, oh, well, let's do this and let's make an independent movie and kind of be more defining. Like, we'll keep the blockbusters here and we'll keep that here. So and for my money, once Miramax really started taking control of, I don't want to say the independent movement, because they kind of ended up perverting it if you really think about it, because they made it kind of like their mission to make all of Hollywood want to be independent filmmakers. And it's like, okay, Hollywood will never be independent filmmakers. That's not where this is going, or should be.
No.
And the whole thing kind of imploded on itself eventually, and no one should be surprised that it did, because eventually it was like, well, yeah, do you know a major studio that can do this stuff? Do you know studios that put out $200 million flicks? Is it really so? Is it really their bag long term? Like when they you had Paramount Classics and you had all these smaller kind of studios built into the studio, but it was like, this isn't going to be long term. Like, not to say what happened to Miramax was so like, oh shit, it's only going to happen for them, but all the studios follow suit. Every single one of them. Warner had an independent label. So did Paramount, like I aforementioned, Paramount Classics. And they made some great stuff, but also in between it was like, okay, we'll treat it as independent because of the subject matter, but then let's go get a bunch of stars. But we'll still try to keep it reasonable. And it's like, well, how reasonable? And it's like, well, $60 or $70 million. And it's like, it's not really how that works. And it ended up not just getting out of hand, but like most things Hollywood does to themselves, is they flood the market. And they flood the market in such a way where what you did before that seemed small and idealistic comes off quite the opposite. And on top of that, guess what? The whole system imploded on itself, where not every movie can be this. How could you possibly long term think that was going to work? Especially because a lot of these actors at the time, they worked for scale or salary. They were able to pull off, at least the studios were, the mini majors, they were able to pull off this. Hey, this stuff's important. Hey, it's smaller. Yeah, we're not going to be able to throw this kind of money at it, but we'll be able to do this. One movie that comes to mind that I love, and I think it's one of his best, but I also find it awesome that people don't realize that this movie exists, and it's one of Sam Raimi's best movies, in my opinion, and it's called The Gift with Kate Blanchett and Katie Holmes and Greg Kinnear and Giovanni Ribisi and Keanu Reeves and
I haven't seen that one.
I highly recommend it. It is okay. I don't know if you ever seen A Simple Plan.
No, I haven't seen that one either.
Oh my God, it's amazing. No, there was a time. I mean, we know that Raimi can make movies with the best of them, but there's also a sign of Raimi that's also restrained, and very much in a case where it's like, we can do, other regular movies not always have to be this, that, or the other thing. The man loves all genres, and it proves in a lot of his work. So when you see Raimi that's a little more scaled back, you don't exactly see it coming, but you also kind of go, let's see how this plays. And in the case of both those movies, The Gift is definitely more supernatural. A Simple Plan is like a straight thriller. You do not have a lot of Raimiism going on, as they say, or as I say. A lot of it is done very straight, beautifully photographed, and he's another one who's been great at casting movies. You look at especially The Gift, like that, especially during that time, early 2000s or so, you're like, wait, who was able to cut these contracts, or how did you get them to play? Because I mean, especially for that time, or even now, like it plays like a huge who's who of that era. And they're in a Sam Raimi movie. And once again, it's not Evil Dead Raimi. It's more grounded. Right. And it plays as a thriller, but it's also very supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's her name? Kate Blanchett, who's fantastic in it, and especially with a southern accent. She plays kind of a fortune teller. And yeah, she has a gift of foresight and stuff like that. But what's really interesting is it's done subtle. Like it's not like Evil Dead where there's deadites or she reads a book. Her gift plays inconsistently, not in a bad way, but very much in the sense of she can only see in certain ways, and then certain things from a premonition standpoint come to her, not just I have a premonition about this. And that plays as kind of a theme throughout the whole movie, because one thing you learn about him especially, or learn about her character especially, is her ability is actually bigger than she thinks. You just don't know it. And especially once you see the way this whole thing plays out, Like it's super impressive. It's very enjoyable. It's smart. The twists work extremely well. And like I said, it's not that kind of crazy Raimi where it's like, here's this and him having just a field day with the camera. It's not that Raimi. Like it's very well grounded, very smart. Performances in it are excellent. And I have to say it's up there for me because it is the movie you don't see coming. Like a lot of people I don't think really remember that not only does this exist, but like he's the director behind it. And this was after either after or during, but somewhere in between doing the Spider-Mans. So yeah, it's great. It plays extremely well. It's really smart. And once again, the performances really nail it, but it was so sobering to kind of see it was him and realize that it wasn't that Raimi where it was all, just crazy angles and going for it. It was like, no, the man knows genres and he knows how to play it. Like, how Sinners played it serious and she's like a fortune teller and stuff like that. He's able to do a better job of that because the performances I think are better, but I also think a huge piece of it is him being able to have that set up so well because it's a small southern town that's very removed from everything, but it is very much a case of like where is this going to play? Because everybody knows everybody, but not in a good way. Because you see a lot of like, oh, I know this person, and I don't like this person, and I have to be stuck with this. I live with this person. I see them all the time. Neighbor or whatever. But it's also like they all see each other and they all talk shit about each other.
Right.
So once again, that's part of all that setup. And it doesn't play it hokey. Like you kind of buy into the supernatural aspect, and probably that's because you're not hit over the head with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that she's this all powerful like seer. She's not this type that knows everything. A lot of it comes to her in pieces, and her visions are incomplete. And even though it's unintentional, she's kind of the inconsistent, unreliable storyteller, where it's like, okay, the truth lies somewhere in between what we're seeing, what we know and what we think we know, and what the difference between those 2 points are. Yeah, big recommend. And it might have you see kind of Raimi in a different light. Because, like I said, once again, it is not Deadites Raimi. It is not Superman Raimi. Like, I mean, none of it works at that level. Where, it's like,
I never saw Drag Me to Hell Raimi, so...
Okay, so I love Drag Me to Hell. I actually own it. That is more... That's a little more like The Gift, but there is a lot of it that plays... There is a lot of it that plays similar to being more on the Evil Dead side.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of it, but it plays more along those lines, not the other way where it's like, oh, you're gonna do this, or it's gonna be all crazy camera angles and stuff like that. There's a couple scenes in there that are like that, and then there's one particular scene at a funeral that is like totally Raimi, where you're like, ah, you sick fuck, God love you. Like you can get $200 million to make Spider-Man movies, but if you get 30 million to make a fucked up horror movie, you're still gonna stick the landing, which he did with Drag Me to Hell. But a big recommend is The Gift. Grounded, smartly played, smartly done. All the performances are great. Even Keanu Reeves trying to do a Southern accent.
Really? So wow, that seems different for him because I don't,
Yeah, he was great in it, and I hate that the movie is not exactly. I mean, especially with his filmography, it's not exactly played to him. Like a lot of people forgot about it, and when you look up his discography or his history, what he's made, and you look at that, and you have to go, he made that. Oh yeah, he made that. Okay, yeah, I didn't realize that he made that. So, yeah, that's. I don't want to say it's in my top 3 because Raimi's done some amazing things across the board, but I can't help but to say I can't help but to kind of just look at it as I kind of can't help but to look at it as like a certain part in his career to where you could see him make big movies and then see him make small movies, which he's still able to do, but he was already associated with Spider-Man by then. So for him to kind of make this little independent piece in the middle of, oh, here's a chunk of money, where it's like, okay, not everything has to be, big budget, and not everything has to be, Peter being emo and dancing for some damn reason, which is never explained to us. Yeah, because 3's a weird one. God, that third Spider-Man, they had too much money, too many opinions, and just trying to make sense of all of it. You're kind of like, oh, okay, there it is. Yeah, there's a lot of his. You feel a little bit of his fingerprints on The Gift a little bit, but it's just done so great. None of it really feels crazy out of whack because he didn't play it that way. And the funny thing is, if you look at the script and kind of think about it, he could have.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't. And that was a good thing.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to watch that because I think that, now I'm interested in kind of like trying to catch all these things that I missed over the years.
Right.
And that's why I was thinking about watching Dial of Dysentery to see if.
That's the name for it. Yeah, dial tone and dysentery.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, I feel like I owe it to myself to watch it just because Harrison Ford did it.
Right.
But then there's another part that's like, it's like 2.5 hours of I don't know, but
it's worth I think it's worth a watch, but I also have to be honest. It is that movie that plays. People said this about Crystal Skull, but honestly, that movie, in my opinion, plays closer to, if you will, a what's the term? Like fan fiction.
Right.
Like, oh, if he got to be 80, is he going to be like, what kind of 80 is he going to be? Kind of deal. Where
I
you
didn't
can't
mind
help it.
the Crystal Skull though. I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't mind that one.
I like Crystal Skull.
Yeah, I thought that it was okay enough. I didn't have a problem with it, but this one just, I don't know. There's something about this one that just makes it seem out of place or feel out of place. I don't.
I think, well, first of all, part of why I love that movie, Crystal Skull, is because even with more money thrown at it than there probably should have been, and it might feel overdone, especially for the whole it's fucking aliens thing. I can honestly say the big thing for me that works for it in a good way is the fact that it is still from Spielberg, from where a lot of Indiana Jones obviously originated. So for my money, a lot of it, that's why it kind of goes in that direction. Because you can't honestly sit there and go, well, if they pass it off to somebody, it should be fine. And I enjoy James Mangold movies very, very much. But I can also tell you that this is a case of him trying to be like the substitute teacher for Spielberg, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this, but it's not like I'm doing this. And I know for a lot of fans, me included, and remember, I saw Dial Tone of Dysentery in the theater, so I gave it a fair shot. And there was that part of me, like I remember telling my girlfriend, where I'm like, I don't know how this one's gonna go down, but I'll give it its due. It's an Indiana Jones movies. Hey, we got Naners on here, Naners. I will give it its just due. I will give it a shot and see how this all plays. It's worth that. And as a true Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones fan, like, why wouldn't I give it that concession?
Yeah.
Of course I'm going to give it a try. Like, I have to. It'd be crazy if I didn't, I guess is the best way to put it. And it feels very patchwork because, there was reshoots here and all this. So there's a lot of that where you kind of realize, you're like, okay, I get why this is not going to work the way you think it might. And the reason why it's not a typical Indiana Jones movie. And once again, it's not a knock on James Mangold, who I think is an amazing storyteller, great director. That man knows how to stage some great pieces. But truth be told, it's not all there, because it is not his. It's not his baby. He may have an affinity for Indiana Jones, but he was hired to do a job.
Right.
And he was hired to do a job with Emperor Kennedy, who really bastardized a lot of things with Lucasfilm because, one, she saw a lot of things as just, oh yeah, let's make money off that. Let's play that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the.
And then of course the other side is, oh yeah, let's also figure out, how I can make a buck, but also kind of get a soapbox effect out of a lot of this stuff. And I don't mind that we had Rey or female characters and stuff like that, but you still have to have storytelling, and you still have to have storytelling that works and commits to something, especially within the characters. And it also doesn't help that a lot of what she did with Star Wars was trying to rob Peter to pay Paul. It's like, yeah, let's go all be original. That's all cool and hunky fucking dory. But then let's make sure we still get all these things. We still get, Han Solo and Luke and stuff. But then let's turn these characters in the opposite direction of anything they were to the fan base. So it's very much a case of like, I mean, for my money, it's like you can't have it. You can't have it both ways, nor should that be the case. And for me, I'm very much that mindset of, it's like, well, sooner or later, it's kind of like Marvel. Like, it's like how old do you expect Robert Downey Jr. to be before you decide to kind of come back? Not to mention, after a while, it all starts turning into, it all starts to feel so desperate.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It all feels, yeah. It also, it's, oh, well, let's do this, but let's not commit to this, and let's not work to improve this stuff. Like, no, let's try this instead, and a lot of it just did not work, especially when you start learning that you thought they had a plan and they didn't have a plan, and you didn't realize until well after the fact, it was like, oh yeah, we're going to do what we want with Star Wars, but we're not going to commit to anything. We're not going to improve on the model at hand. And it's the name on the box. So why isn't it that people are going to not, you know what I mean? Well, why wouldn't people watch it? I guess is kind of the best way to put it. And it's like, no, nobody's too big for their britches. Nobody's bigger than, I mean, even a popular franchise, like, no, like, franchises hit snags all the time. And there were some wins on her time. I love Andor, and Andor is basically the equivalent of people of our age who love Star Wars getting a Star Wars that relates to us. Like, it all tracks.
Well, now I feel like I should watch that.
Andor? I highly recommend Andor.
I haven't seen any of this, you know what I mean? I haven't seen any of the series or anything like that, so.
I highly recommend Andor. That is definitely one of those. That is definitely one of those cases where, because it felt weird when it was announced, because you're like, well, why are they making a series, let alone a prequel series, based around a character we pretty much know dies in Rogue One? And why it works so well, at least in my opinion, is because you get to, this is the first time you see stakes. And yes, of course, the rebellion and the Empire were fighting forever and a day. And they talk about trade routes, obviously the prequels, episode 1 particularly, where you kind of learn and realize that there is a lot underway. There's a lot at stake.
Right.
Andor gets into the nitty-gritty of that and why so much of that works. And there's no lightsabers, there's no force, there's no Skywalkers, there's no Luke, I am your father. There is none of that. Yeah. There is no case of any of that affecting the story. What you find in this particular series is very much the nuts and bolts of what it means to fight a rebellion. Either if you're caught in the middle of it, or you end up being kind of a pawn in it. Like, it really plays with almost like the cloak and dagger of like the small actions creating big ripples. That's one thing about the series. That's the one thing about the series that I really, really love. And it's beautifully done. I love Tony Gilroy. Been a fan of his forever. The fact that he took Star Wars in the direction that he did is very impressive, because it's not like he hated Star Wars, but right off the jump, he wasn't going to use the Star Wars of before. Like, he wasn't going to have fucking Ewoks.
Yeah,
which he does not. No, a lot of the series is based around the in-between plotting and planning and backstabbing of what it takes, almost like a Cold War, to fight a rebellion and to take on an empire. Insanely well done. If you ever have to question if any of the budget is on screen, actually, no, I take that back. That'll never happen, because it's pretty obvious right off the jump that they threw money at this, and so much so that the final price tag between the 2 seasons, okay,
right,
estimated come up to about $600 million, apparently.
Holy shit.
Yes. I don't know how accurate that is. That is reported, of course. But that reminds you, okay, first of all, it's Disney money, number one. But number two, it is a reminder that even with what Catherine Kennedy did or didn't do right, she very much has a handle on this. So the money was spent, and it makes you wonder who greenlit what, because you can kind of tell the snafu points, and then you can turn around. Like, I mean, you've got Book of Boba Fett, which is just like, what the hell is this? And I mean, talk about a series that is completely useless, pointless, and just like, I mean, honestly, Book of Boba Fett, I'm so glad it's not going to get a second season. It's fucking terrible. I tried watching it and just, it didn't click. In the case of Andor, like, they went for it, and whoever cut those checks, that's great. But also, it's like, holy shit. But you also have to remember, the first season did well, but then the second season, like on initial viewings, like when the episode would drop, would have like 12 to 15 million viewers. And that's the initial drop. Remember, it's on an app. You can watch it anytime you like. But the initial drop, and it was like 15 million viewers.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah, it was almost like network TV again on an app. Yeah, that says a lot.
It does. It really does.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed Andor. I highly recommend it. It's a big watch, and not in a horrible way, but it's like there's a lot happening, and for 8 or 9 episodes per season, they pack in a lot in a very, very short space.
So there's no room for it to really like lag. It just keeps moving, as it's like it moves at a pretty good pace. It seems like to get all that stuff in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot that they really get, that they really nail and they get done. It's quite impressive for a series based on, something in the case of like Star Wars, where, it started as a very kind of, I don't want to say a kid's movie, but it was kind of like a boys' adventure movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, Andor, big recommend. But I'm so glad you loved MIDSOMMAR. I was kind of wondering how that was going to work. And a lot of that for me was just because, and it kind of goes back to Sinners too. Like everybody will watch a movie and get something different out of it, even if it's something that's kind of explained to them.
Right. Yeah, that's it. That is it. Everybody, it's all, everybody sees things or takes things however they're gonna but it was definitely like I cannot wait now to dig into more A24. I think it's all just wow. And I am gonna go back and revisit Hereditary too and see if maybe I feel on that one.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's a big one. Like I could see that one where it's like, because for me it's literally a series where you're like, I mean, not a series, but it's a movie. Like I've seen Hereditary 3 times, and as much as I enjoy it, I still don't know what to make out of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't. I only saw it the one time in the theater, and I remember I went with a friend, and afterwards we looked at each other, and he was just like,
"What?
What was this?" And I said, "I have no fucking idea." And I'm like, I just don't know. I'm like, people are on fire, and I'm like, and that like turned me off. I was like, I'm done with Ari. I'm not interested in him anymore. I'm like, this is like watching, like it wasn't an enjoyable experience for me.
Yeah.
Whereas MIDSOMMAR was just something like I just kind of went with it. Like you were on, like
you were on the trip.
Yeah, you're on the trip, and you just gotta like kind of ride, just ride it and let it take you where it's gonna take you, and that's it.
Yeah. Once again, that was kind of the beauty of it. Like, and similar to Hereditary, it is an all-in effect. You're either in it or you're not in it, and it's a lot to take in. But in the case of Hereditary, one thing that I think worked against it is like how much it deals with the family and what's going on with them.
Right.
So there's a level of investment where you're like, okay, I have to kind of get kind of niched into this. In the case of MIDSOMMAR, outside of Flo, I could give 2 shits less what happens to most of the characters because they're all assholes.
Mm-hmm.
They're all kind of shits, and there's really nothing about them to like. I know I didn't.
Yeah, no, I didn't either. I really didn't. And I mean, even though I felt that Flo or Danny, I think was the character name, but I'm not positive. But I
Yes.
think that was the character name. But I'm just like in the beginning, she was just like I'm like she is crying way too much. Like she just needs to fucking just like chill.
Well, oh yeah. Well, and her character ended up being kind of trapped in all of this. You can't help but to like you feel for her, but then you're also like, is she, are we supposed to sympathize, empathize, or root for her? And it ends up being kind of all three. And I think that's what ends up being kind of the beauty of the movie, where you kind of go, okay, this is we have to get ourselves in a position to figure out how it's going to end for her, because right off the bat, like the girl's in a bad way, and a lot of the people in her life have kind of discounted her, and treat her lesser than. And then you're kind of like, well, gee, wonder why she has all these issues. And it's like, well, it's pretty obvious why. It's not a big shock, where once she gets there and she starts feeling loved and she starts feeling cared about. And I think that's one thing that was so great when the whole thing kind of plays, because you start to realize that, friends or no friends, like everybody should feel kind of wanted and needed in a genuine sense. And one thing for her that didn't happen. She had a boyfriend who, gaslighted her, took her for granted, and did not value her. Like, once again, it was a relationship that was based around him, and she just happens to be here too. And there was a ton of that for them.
Right.
And it was kind of weird because you don't know what to make of it, especially once you kind of realize like how broken she is. That's why once they get there and it starts to unfold, even with all the bad shit that happens to her friends, her boyfriend getting fucking sacrificed and all that shit, that's how you end up rooting for her, because it's like you realize it's like, wow, this girl couldn't fucking buy a break. And she was surrounded by people. She was surrounded by people who did not value her. Like, it was not a case of her ever being in a healthy position. And what was crazy is even in the end, that's not what one would call a healthy kind of way. Like, in many ways, she's still kind of boned. But it was the first time in her life she was made to feel needed and wanted.
Right.
And I think that's huge for the character, and that's what glues the movie together, especially with it being Flo. Where you kind of like, okay, she's even with, because in some ways you got to remember, like, she kind of finds her power, but the town is still focusing on her to kind of take advantage of her. But in the midst of it, she kind of sheds all this bad, the boyfriend. And man, oh man, like, by the time it gets to the end and what they do to him and what they bring onto him, you do not you do not feel an iota of sadness for this guy. You're kind of like, yep, fuck him. Good.
Right.
Yeah, he deserved to get the shit end of the stick the way he did. Yep.
Yeah, that's.
I'm sorry, watching him in that bear suit and shit go down. Oh, it's fucking awesome.
Oh my god. Yeah, that was. I mean, but again, like that fire fucking started, and I was just like,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, he's gonna burn.
Oh
and
yeah.
then the other people burned, and then he burned, and I was like, wow. I'm like, it's just like a fucking flaming thing. It's like, but that must be his trademark. He must. Now, are those the only 2 films he's done, or has he done anything else?
No, he's done one. So he's done one called Beau is Afraid, and I haven't seen it.
Beau is Afraid. I haven't seen that yet either, but now I want to watch that.
Yeah, he's done Beau is Afraid, which I haven't seen. I'd like to. I'm kind of digging on it. So there's that part of me. It's like, okay, let's see how this goes. And then he's got one coming out in, I want to say it's like about 3 weeks, called Eddington, which is kind of about these struggles in a town between these 2 public figures during COVID. And it played in Cannes, and once again, his movies are either met with love or the other side where it's like, oh, okay.
I wonder how that one's going to play out. That's different.
Yeah. That one's kind of interesting, and I would like to see. I'd like to see it. The cast is great: Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, Joaquin Phoenix. I'd like to see how it plays, but I'm not exactly like. It's something. It's not something I'm going to rush to the theater for.
Right.
So, but I'm really glad you like Midsummer. I was kind of holding my ass, just kind of like, because I like, and a lot of that is because I like it as much as I do. So I was kind of like, how's this one gonna play? Sure enough, you're like, fuck yeah. I'm like, nailed it.
Yep. There you go. I mean, and I'm looking for, like, I'm just wondering, I'm like, I'm like, what should I do next? So, like, that's.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out what's. I don't know. We'll have to discuss this one. I've got a couple ideas, but my brain is fried and I'm tired, so I can't draw real thoughts yet. But I will.
Yes. No, I hear you. I definitely hear you. So, but I don't know. So should we wrap it up, or?
Yes, if you don't mind, I think we've reached that point.
No, I think we have. All right. So, and I do have the outro in, so we won't have to just worry about applauding until the thing ends. So, I guess until next time, I guess. Well, see, are you doing? Because I know, like, the 4th of July is next Friday.
Right.
So, do you have anything planned for, like, around
No, we can do.
Okay.
We can do a show on the 3rd. I'm down. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So then we we will aim for the 3rd then. But
Woo!
until then, I guess we will see you guys next time. And let's hope that this hits right.